All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. We're going to start the City of Newberry Planning and Zoning Board. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And first thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Did the board have a chance to review the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a
I need you to tell me who's making the motion.
that would be motion is Jessica Baker, second by Miss Linda Woodcock. And all those in favor?
Aye.
What? Do we have any comments or questions on the motion on the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
No.
I do. I think before we approve the agenda, it's probably a good idea to let the applicants know that we're down one member and
Yes.
the perils that may come with a four-person board.
All right. Mayor brings up a very valid point. I was going to bring this up. We do have a quorum. However, any decisions made today could be, if there's a split of 2-2 on the vote, it will still go before the commission. However, it will go as a failed motion to the commission. Mr. Brian Thomas from the city could explain a little bit more on how that works, but just want to give the applicant fair warning that we are, it could be a split vote at any time.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Basically, what would happen is if an item goes to vote and you have 2 in favor and 2 against, it's equivalent of a failure of the item to move forward. So the applicant at that point would have the opportunity to continue forward to the commission, but as you pointed out, it would be without the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. It would be essentially the same as a recommendation for denial.
Thank you. So at this point, I guess if there's any applicant, can the applicant at this point, if anybody wants to table theirs until we have a full board, would now be the appropriate time to let us know that you want to table this till we have all 5 members present, just so you have an actual 3-2 vote or unanimous vote. Any applicant want to?
Good evening, Jared Diedenbach, CHW. We're here on behalf of the staff property application this evening. Given your number tonight, we would like to make a slight modification to the agenda in the sense that we would like to present the land use item to you, but not ask for a vote this evening because we understand that the staff recommendation might have modifications to it from the way it was originally published in the written form. But if it would please the Planning and Zoning Board members, we would like the opportunity to have an open discourse with you about the nature of the project, hear your comments, and then bring it back at a time where all of you are here and not run that 2-2 risk or so. Okay. If that would please the board. We try to do things right, not right now, except when it's window shades.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
First, I want to say I appreciate that request to amend. I think that is a better plan for this. I have just a couple of comments before we vote on approving the agenda. Brian, there's a whole lot of things on here that are listed as legislative hearings that I think used to be listed as quasi-judicial. Can you explain the change in that policy, why some of these that would have been, and tell me if I'm wrong, but.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in previous meetings for a while now, we've treated everything in terms of when it is related to a specific property, including land use changes, as quasi-judicial, probably more out of an abundance of caution than anything else. But the reality is that the legislative action, or excuse me, land use actions, even concerning small-scale land use, which would be a small single parcel, are considered by the state legislature and by the even case law in the Supreme Court to be legislative in nature. And so we don't have to abide by the same quasi-judicial procedures for land use changes that we would for any of the other types of procedures such as rezonings or special exceptions or site plans.
And do we have a legal opinion that confirms with that opinion?
The attorney's office official position is that it's our understanding that the cases in this area are sometimes gray, and we have been proceeding for the last couple of meetings, everything under quasi judicial in an abundance of caution, as it's our understanding that it would be better to do it as quasi judicial, even if it's not required, than to run it as non-quasi judicial and then find out it is required and have to go back and do the whole thing again. Mr. Thomas, I have full and utter faith in your research, so it's up to the board. Our recommendation is always to run them as quasi judicial, but it's your choice.
Okay, so, I mean, I think we can couch all kinds of things in that phrase out of an abundance of caution. And I'm certainly not trying to advocate for more quasi judicial stuff. However, I'd want to make sure that this board and the applicants are aware of that potential gray area, that if we move forward with these items as legislative and there is a dispute or a controversy, that might be grounds for us going back. Not necessarily reversal, but we have to go through the process again, especially if some of these items are more controversial. It might not be the same group of people that are up here, it depends on when they come back and those kinds of things. So
Is there a statute of limitations on that?
Not that I know of. I'm sure that there is, but I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
What we can do is, going forward, Mr. Thomas and I can talk, and Mr. Walker and I can talk, and we can kind of delve into this and give you a memo on it, but obviously I can't offer that right now.
It was just for full transparency to see if there's, someone decides to come back 10 years from now and say, well, hey.
Are the volumes up on this? Because can you guys out there hear? Okay. So, I mean, I guess that's my first concern. I'm fine with moving forward. I think that especially probably the one that's going to cause the most robust conversation is now just a presentation. They're not asking for a vote, and hopefully we can have we can all be on the exact same page before we come back to that again.
Yep.
I do want to say again how grateful I am for that change, because this agenda has made me kind of nervous.
Yeah.
Because we have recently had conversations about our urban services area, the overlay district. On our last board meeting, we had a conversation about how quickly we were moving and how we had just finished our visioning and we were seeking to implement. And here we are yet once again being asked to kind of do some of the very same things. So I appreciate giving us a little bit of a breather, a pause to work some of these issues out. And I'm much more comfortable voting in favor of everything on the agenda, not in favor, but of voting on the motion with that change. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Madam Attorney, do we have to have the motion restated with that change in there?
I would, for the record.
Okay. Do we have a original motion from Jessica Baker?
I will revise my motion to include the agenda as revised.
With the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have?
I'll second.
All right, so we have the motion revision from Jessica Baker, second from Ms. Woodcock. Any comments on the motion?
I have a comment on the
Yeah.
motion because I don't honestly, what we decide to do either way, I'm not understanding what we're really saying. We are going to be quasi judicial tonight because we don't know if we should or not. Is that correct?
No, Mr. Chair, what I understood was that we were going
I'm not
to.
speaking, am I?
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
I understood we were going to leave it as legislative hearings tonight, and then we would confirm, our team and legal would get together before it goes in front of the commission. So we'll
Okay.
leave the ones as legislative tonight, as legislative, as quasi-judicial, and then hopefully everybody will be on the same page when we get back.
So no quasi judicial
No,
tonight?
the ones that are advertised as quasi-judicial will remain, but some of these that are advertised as legislative, at our last meeting, they would have been advertised as quasi-judicial.
Okay, I guess. Okay.
All right. Any other comments or any public comments on the agenda as has been All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and now, after long ado, Ms. Baker will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Where's the flag? Are we gonna use that?
It's at Dudley Farm.
You wanna use that one?
There we go. There's a flag right there.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. All right. Did the board have a chance to review and approve of the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes?
I have a motion from Ms. Baker to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I second that.
We have a second from member Long. Do we have to have comments on the, any comments on the motion? Public comments on the motion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved minutes. All right, announcements. Do we have any announcements other than we all know where we're going for Thanksgiving next year? Any announcements then for the city? No? Any public announcements? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our presentation. Our first presentation is Newberry Urban Services Area Boundary. I believe the city's gonna go ahead and give that presentation for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an item that has come up for discussion with the commission before, and so wanted to present it to the Planning and Zoning Board as well, just to make sure everybody is familiar with the concept of the urban services boundary and understands what it is and what it does for the city of Newberry. Basically, our recommendation is to receive the presentation and then discuss. Urban service areas were established originally by the legislature. They're to be, they're solely at the discretion of the city government or the local municipality. Some municipalities do not have them. It's not a required element of the comprehensive plan. The city of Newberry chose to adopt one, I believe it was back in 2007. It's used as a tool to direct growth into areas where the city has already planned for the extension of water and sewer and roadway infrastructure, and to limit growth where those items are not planned for. Like I said, it's an optional element of the comprehensive plan. So currently, if you look at the city of Newberry's urban services area, it's basically a 3-mile radius around the centroid of the city, with a little bit of extra area down at the south, at the southern border that runs along 46th Avenue. Just for reference, this is what the previous urban services area looked like. And you can see where the current urban services area expanded outward, the footprint of where the city could expand water and sewer infrastructure if they so chose. A little bit more of a close-up area, and you can see it contains all of the downtown area. Just an aerial that should, if that gives you a little bit better perspective. And so currently, where this comes into play really is if the commission decides that they want to contract the urban services boundary or expand it in certain areas. It could do a combination of both. You could expand it a little bit in one area and you can contract it in other areas. Like I said, right now it's basically a 3-mile radius around the center of the city. There's opportunity. This is a generalized, it's a circle, obviously. That's going to mean that it's going to bisect certain properties. In general, if it bisects a property, it means that the entirety of that property could be considered included in the urban services area if somebody wanted to develop it. Most communities probably have a little bit more specific urban services boundary in that it follows parcel lines. So that's one option that the commission and the board, the Planning and Zoning Board might want to look at, is if there is a desire to contract, that it would be done along specific property lines. As you can see, sort of in the 4 quadrants, you've got a lot of area, the mining area, for instance, which a lot of that is actually unincorporated. Alachua County is not in the urban services area. Same with each of the other quadrants. There's a lot of undeveloped rural agricultural lands. That might be a consideration that the commission and the Planning and Zoning Board want to consider taking those areas out of the urban services area. And so it's really just it's up to the will of the commission how they want to use the urban services area to control the growth that's occurring in the city of Newberry. And this slide here shows you in relationship to the existing urban services area where all of the projects that we have under consideration right now, some of which those in red are under active development, those in blue have entitlements but they're not actively being developed, and those in yellow, they've turned in applications or we're currently working with the landowners on those properties. And so as you can see, pretty much on the far reaches, north, south, east, and west, and all the compass points, you've got projects potentially in the works. And so, that also could play into consideration of whether or not to contract or potentially in certain small areas expand the urban services area. And so that's generally the idea of this is just to generate some discussion, provoke thought, and then I think as we move forward, the commission's going to give direction that they either want to change it, and then based on those direction from the commission, we would come back to the first of the Planning and Zoning Board, make some proposed recommendations, and then the Planning and Zoning Board would make their recommendation to the commission for further action. So that's basically the discussion layout of the urban services area. It does have to be amended by ordinance. It would first be heard by the Planning and Zoning Board, get your recommendation to the commission. It does require then two further hearings to pass the ordinance. It would have to go to the state for approval because it is considered a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, text amendment. And then once back from the Department of Economic Opportunities review, it would then be approved by the commission on a second reading. So if there are any questions on the urban services boundary area, or area boundary.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If you had a chance, we had this presentation in front of the commission, so you might have watched that. And really, I see this as a long-term conversation, and I said this at the commission meeting, so I'm going to say it here tonight. It's not in any way intended to make any developers nervous. I have no knowledge that we will or won't change the urban services area, but in the middle of our visioning session, this is, in my mind, a really good time to have this conversation. One of the things that we heard in the visioning session was that people wanted green space, they wanted a green belt around, they wanted to protect that feel of leaving Jonesville, Gainesville, and driving through and coming into Newberry. And our urban services area is the first way that we communicate to developers where we want development to happen and where we don't want development to happen. And right now, I think we're sending a mixed signal. For instance, I've heard every single commissioner say they don't want to approve any development north of Newberry Road in close proximity to the mines until the mines are heading north themselves and putting a little bit of distance between the residences and the mining operations. But can you put it back on the map? As you can see, we're clearly telling developers that this is fair game of an area to develop in because it's squarely inside the urban services area. So I think we're putting our staff in an untenable situation where the commission has drawn a circle and said anything inside this circle we intend to be developed at some point in time, and then said something else on the dais. So the urban services area is the first line of defense. If it's outside the urban services area, then staff would stand up here and recommend not to approve it because it's not in the urban services area. If it's inside the urban services area, as we've all heard, staff has a hard time standing up here and recommending against because, well, it's inside the urban services area. So in my mind, this conversation is part and parcel of the visioning, and it may grow, it may shrink, it may grow in some areas and shrink in other, it may stay the same. It also seems to me like that's sort of a random circle that's just sort of drawn, and not following the parcel line seems like a big blunder to me. Like, it should follow the parcel lines. For instance, that big yellow development at the north, clearly part of that is outside of the urban services area, but because part of it is inside the urban services area, the default position would be that that automatically extends the USA, right? So I think that's one reason why the urban service area should, at the very least, follow parcel lines so that nobody can follow a loophole and say, well, I've got 1 acre inside the urban service area and 900 acres out. So all 900 acres out are now inside the USA also. So I appreciate any feedback that you guys would have, any questions you have, because I know the commission is honed in on this question right now.
Well, I believe any development or any zoning that we do, the partial should match the development, because it makes sense. If you put a developer in a place and he doesn't have a full location, then how do you encourage people to come into the city? So you need to have stuff that makes sense to both sides, so we can all agree on one thing and be done with it. So it's a lot easier to go forward with a plan if everything's included.
I think, I don't know, did you do this? Your office? The map? The
Yes.
circle?
Yes.
The circle. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that we have something solid to look at. And if we extend it or make it smaller or jig-jag it or whatever, then we have the right to do that, and we have the ability to do that. But to me, as I was looking through this packet, this really makes sense to me to see what we're going forward as and where we're at now. So I appreciate the graphics. That's, to me, it's been helpful. Whether or not we stay just with this, I like your example of if I have 1 acre in and 500 out, that I see I hadn't considered that problem. But I can see where that would be a problem. But anyway, the whole graphic here gives you a really good, solid feel for where we're at. And so I think it's a good beginning, at least. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I had a couple questions for you, for staff. So knowing that this is our circumference, right? This is where we stand. It's pretty much the line. If we were going to go straight across Newberry Road, the line stops at 202. Correct. Is that correct?
Yes.
So with that being said, 202, how far from 202 do we go out that we're like, hey, this is ag, this is farmland, whatever we want. This is not what we're gonna go urban service. Mm-hmm. And where does Jonesville meet? Because my vision of Newberry, everybody has a vision of Newberry, is we like to see ag. We want to see the commercial too, but we want what we moved here for was ag. I don't want to see, and a lot of people will agree, where Jonesville and Newberry, you can't tell where one starts and the other one begins. Mm-hmm. Where does our line go up to? Because my fear is like Jonesville's like, well, I can build all the way to 170th. Well, that only leaves me about 30 blocks of farm between us and the urban line. Do you know where does Jonesville
Yes.
also have a line that we can at least?
Yes. Mr. Chair, so basically, the urban service boundary for Alachua County, well, actually, the city of Gainesville and Alachua County is 154th Street on Newberry Road. And so it's basically ends where, I can't remember the name, Brookview Apartments. The apartments on the north side of Newberry Road are. That's basically the dividing line right there, where their urban services boundary stops. And so their urban services boundary says, well, we're not going to extend any utilities beyond that line.
Okay.
And so from that point westward to 202nd would be the green belt on Newberry Road.
Okay. You see where my question is like my fear is like, we have this vision of our green belt, but if they don't have that same vision, all of a sudden our green belt just gets smaller and smaller.
The actual city of Newberry boundary is slightly east of 170th. on the north side, not on the south side, but on the north side. That Park West, there's some property that wraps around there that is in the city of Newberry.
Okay, and then my second question, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on a couple things with that. As Brian said, our city boundary is generally 1/70th. We go a parcel or so east of there in one place, but generally 1/70th. So it's about 1 mile from 1/70th to 154th, 16 blocks, where the county's urban services line is. They have the ability as a board to change their urban services boundary just like we do, as Brian just showed you. Theirs has been in place for a number of years, and you'll remember a year or so ago, we voted on the GMA, the growth management area. Kind of everything between 154th and 170th is in that GMA. So even if that was to annex into Newberry, Alachua County still has control over how it develops. So I interpret that to be, that's Alachua County's attempt at keeping their portion of the green belt. So it's 1 mile of green belt to our city limits. Once you hit our city limits, Alachua County is out in terms of how things developed. Then it comes to this board and the city commission. And between 1/70th and 202, that's 2 miles. So between our USA and our city limits is 2 miles, and then another mile worth of county. So we currently have 3 miles between areas that can be developed with utilities, urban services boundary, Newberry's versus Alachua counties.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question I had was, if for whatever reason we change that circle, let's say we move that circle further west, any of the properties that have been approved to build or have applications in, they got in on time. I'm not concerned about them. I'm concerned about like the property that maybe they encompass all of a sudden says, hey, well, these surrounding areas are zoned this way. Why could they still be grandfathered in? Or do we tell them, listen, it moved and those are grandfathered in, and unfortunately you're gonna have to find a place out west? Do you understand? Do you understand my question?
If I understand the question correctly, Mr. Chair, it would not be incumbent on the city to move the line beyond any property that was already zoned for development. Whether property that's under review for application is another matter, because the commission still has the ultimate authority on whether to approve the land use and zoning change.
Okay.
And so you would have to move pretty far west to reach property that was already rezoned. So I don't think it would be much of an issue. I would say that anything that was already zoned commercial or for development, it would make sense to keep it in the urban services area.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
On that point, because I think that is the most pertinent point, and we talked about this a little bit before. I think it wouldn't be fair to anybody that's already on the books to write them out of the urban services area.
Right.
They're in the books. The red and the blue developments are on the books. They're there. They're in the process at some point. The yellow outlines are people that we know are coming, but don't actually have any votes except for number 15 up there. And if you remember, part of our conversation during the P&Z meeting was, hey, staff, we're talking about the visioning, we're talking about overlay, we're trying to get a conversation about the urban services area. And so that's why I think it's really important for us to slow down on these, on the overlay and on that eastern border, because while the developers may be willing to build to a higher standard, if you guys recommend and the commission agrees and votes to shrink the urban services area, but they've already got on the books, well, now we're in sort of a different pickle, because you've already said they can go, they just have to build to a standard. So they're going to make the argument, hey, we're grandfathered in, right, which is, not knowing the outcome of all the conversations we're in the middle of. I think the fairest stance to take is to ask people, let us finish these conversations. we're trying to have the conversation as fast as we can. Let us finish the conversations. Let's get the overlay district. Let's finalize our conversation with the urban services area. And then everyone will know exactly where they stand and what they need to do. Because I hate putting the applicants, I hate putting staff, I hate putting you guys in this situation as well. You said last time, yes, but then we changed this and, you know, it's just, there's a lot of unanswered questions right now.
Yeah, that was to my point was, you know, we did shrink it. Not necessarily move the whole circle, just, you know, if it did shrink, how would that affect current and future people that are around it or the ones that already have an happened? That's it for me. Do any other members?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
what were the changes made in 2016 to this? Were they expanded? Was the radius expanded?
There's the 2007 urban services boundary in red,
Okay.
and then the green circle is the 2016 expansion.
And what is the difference in area between the two?
The urban services area we currently have is approximately 28 square miles. I don't have a measurement on the original. I couldn't find anywhere where that actually measured that out. Just eyeballing it, I'd have to say it's probably 2/3.
And what is the total square mileage of Newberry right now?
58, roughly, give or take a fraction of a mile.
All right. Do we have any public comment?
Do you have a presentation or did you get this on presentation?
Yeah, it's just a presentation, right? All right. Yeah, did staff have any more?
I do. I wanted to mention, you know, just one thing, because I think that educating our decision makers, Planning and Zoning Board and City Commission, is critical to get, oh gosh, I'm going the wrong way, to getting this right. So I just wanted to point out, let me get, see, he was at the end. The urban services boundary doesn't necessarily, it is a tool, it is not the only tool that ever gets used by a decision board. We have a comprehensive plan and we have a zoning atlas that they all work together. And I'll give you an example. Outside of the urban services area where you can't develop with, normally what I say is within the urban services area you can't develop with intensity. We have a commercial zoning category called commercial neighborhood that you can approve outside of, I think there's one on the application, one on the agenda for tonight. It's scaled down. It's not as intense. It's the one commercial zoning category where that could get approved where we could see commercial development outside of our USA. Same thing for residential. We wouldn't, a board wouldn't consider residential development with intensity outside of our USA, but we have, it's a PRRD, did I get that right? Planned Rural Residential Development. Dillon's Grove would be an example. And Half Moon Station is another example where we can approve residential. There's another one in the pipeline now that's going to come before you sometime. I couldn't give you a date. So you can improve things other than ag outside of the USA, but it won't have the same intensity as what's being approved within the USA, which again is why I say it is a tool, but not necessarily an exclusive tool. It works hand in hand with your comprehensive plan and your zoning atlas.
Thank you. All right, thank you staff for that presentation. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Yeah, so public hearing and ordinance. So we'll move on to the first public hearing and ordinance. With that being said, we had a motion to change it to a presentation only, so if the applicant would like to come up and make that presentation, we'll be glad to. We're ready for you.
Mr. Chair, staff will go ahead and do just the brief overview as an introduction to the presentation.
Okay.
Hang on, sorry.
Okay, I think we're there. The presentation tonight will be in reference to Ordinance 2021-77, which is application CPA 21-18. It's an application to change the future land use designation on 272 acres by changing the land use classification from City of Newberry agriculture to planned development on those 272 acres. The properties in question are on the north side of Newberry Road, just east of what's commonly known as Komoko Ranch. There's an aerial view of the 5 properties that are part of the application. It's just due west of Destiny Community Church, again, as a reference. Current land use is agriculture, and the proposed land use would then be planned development. So this would be the first step in the future land use amendment. As we discussed, it's going to be a presentation only right now. If and when it comes back in the future, you would be the first to hear it again, and it goes to the commission for a first public hearing. Assuming approval by the commission, it would go to DEO for their review, because it would be a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, and then it would have to be approved by the city commission on second reading. And then you'd have subsequent rezonings. Out of the comprehensive plan, the objectives for plan development standards are listed here. It's basically meant to be a unified development under single control, master planned community, have components for commercial as well as residential. You can have public components, recreation components. And it's generally intended for residential, low, medium, or high density, again with recreation, public, or commercial uses as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you again, and as soon as she flips the PowerPoint, all this technology.
Hey.
Cool, very good. Well, thank you again, and thank you for allowing us to switch this to more of a workshop type format or a informational presentation, because as I stated, while I'll do the city blinds really quickly, we don't want to do projects right now. We want to do projects that are right. So we're going to talk about the exact presentation that we were going to give earlier and have a little bit of discourse. It's very difficult to talk in these situations, with the commission to really understand. And when we're talking about large-scale land use amendments and long-term projects that are phased and master planned over time, it's an important dialogue that I think that needs to occur. So my name is Jerry Diedenbach. I've been a professional land use planner for 32 years now. I've worked at CHW, which started out as CASA in Ellington. Before that, Chance and CASA. With me is Rory CASA, the founder of the company, who has since retired and moved on to his second career in life, which is real estate, both commercial and residential in nature. He's going to be part of the presentation tonight because this project that we're speaking to you about has a long history in the community, and we wanted to talk specifically to that. We were going to ask you, and we will still ask you, to ultimately approve a planned development. And that's the key word that we have, planned in front of development. When we've been working in the city of Newberry for the last couple decades, or 20 plus years, we've looked at the sequential growth of the community, how the responses, our applications, meet the needs of the population of the city, whether that's for a new restaurant or for a commercial business or for a residential neighborhood. I think one of the first things that I ever did was over by the middle school that ultimately was developed. Then Miranda came in and bought it and started building some homes. And then I got the pleasure of meeting this guy named Ronnie Rowland. Some of you probably know him as Rufus, and did Newtown 1894. Significant to that, that was the city's incorporation date. And that was a really successful subdivision and a place for people to live. But I understand also that there are components about what happened afterwards that may not have been the best thing. So what we want to try to do is strive for the best thing. We've been working on this project for the majority of 2021. The land, however, has been owned by our clients for a little over, 15 years. And they've been thinking and contemplating, when is the right time to do something? When is it appropriate to bring forward a development in the city? We were prepared tonight to talk to you about that and then pause the project because you are adopting corridor overlay standards, and we're hopefully going to be helping you with that process because we really believe in the city. I think that's an important component. You know, we're not here trying to speculate about 50 years in the future or 100 years in the future. We're trying to make a response to what the city needs today and the next 5 and 10 years. So as we've showed and was on the Urban Services presentation, you can see specifically here, there's a blue arcing line that comes down through about the center of the screen, and what we call the SAP property exists on Newberry Road, just on the north side of the road, sits in between Destiny Community Church and Kamoka Ranch. It is along that continued corridor, which we feel is a gateway to the city. And a real good question was asked at the beginning of this meeting when talking about that green belt in between what's Gainesville, what's Jonesville, and what's Newberry, because that sense of arrival into the community is really important. I follow the city on Facebook. I follow several of the elected officials and the staff on Facebook, and I see how the excitement grows when the new University of Florida and the IFAS extension was there, and we were there for the groundbreaking of that. When Dudley Farms became a historic site officially in the state. Those are great things, and I think you need to build off of that excitement and of that ceremony of what makes Newberry the place that it is. Well, as the city has continued to grow toward the east, it has been largely along the state road corridors, whether either State Road 26 or 2745 going north to south. And the city's population and infrastructure has had to grow, sometimes a little ahead, sometimes a little catch up, but that's how municipalities grow. And this direction to the east on Newberry Road is a direction that we feel is an appropriate area for urban residential and urban commercial development along an existing 4-lane state highway in an area where water and sewer can readily and easily be provided, as well as this is the corridor that people travel to go back and forth to job centers in the city of Gainesville and Alachua County and up in Alachua and down in the southern portion of the county. The property is 272 acres in size, and Newberry has some advantages in a development format. Sorry. If you think of the size and scale of Alachua along the 441 corridor, High Springs, there's a lot of little tiny parcels of land. Newberry has some larger chunks of land that would make really nice and can make really nice concentrated master plan developments. So these sites are really key, and what you do on these larger pieces of property when you're talking about 250 acres or better is really important because you can keep the growth focused on the corridor where transportation, water, sewer, electric is all located, and then further buffer those properties that are to the north or to the south of 26 or to the east and west of 2741 State Road 45 so that those smaller 5-acre lots where people live in the rural countryside can stay part of that green belt. And so as you can see, this is tucked down south of the mines, and we are prepared to talk about, the importance of how that blends in together. So no surprise, most of this land is agriculture that's out there today inside the urban services area. It makes a nice transition, and we should be establishing a gateway, and that's what our plan is here to do. When we look at the overall decision of making a large-scale land use amendment, which in the state of Florida now means over 50 acres, we want to look at what the real feel and character of the community is. We've participated over the last several years, along with the city, by attending the workshops held by the Florida Department of Transportation, and we know that the changes that are imparting into the downtown area are designed to preserve not only the historic character of the community, but to preserve that downtown charm while safely moving vehicles and people throughout the community. And community form is very important to our planning efforts here. When we look at this sense of place, we know that Newberry is not just another town. We've worked here for 25 years, and we understand that that sense of the historic downtown and the buildings that are here and the places that establish the community are the things that we need to really respect when we're doing planning work here. Not many places I get to go to an old schoolhouse like I'm familiar with in the place that I grew up that happens to be the home of your planning and building department. So that character is really intrinsic to the community here. But one of the driving factors of Newberry and what you see when you drive around the neighborhoods is that there is a great cost of living here. I drive around and I see police cars from GPD or ASO or City of Gainesville GRU cars, because people can't afford oftentimes to live in the City of Gainesville, and so they want a little elbow room, they want to live in a little bit more relaxed form, they move out here. So when I drive through Mr. Norfleet's developments, as I've been doing for a long time, he was here a few moments ago, I get it. I understand why people come out here. And I think that's a part of what you need to focus on when you look at land use. This chart here that shows the cost of your utility services here relative to the rest of the state, you're on the right side of the curve, being on the left side of the chart here, because it is a place where you can raise a family in a quality environment and you don't have other people right necessarily on top of you or pushing that envelope of what's the highest density that can be achieved. Well, living in the city of Newberry, this is a good picture here. It's big enough to where it has a sense of character and a true identity, but it's not so big that you can get lost in Newberry. Newberry is a convenient sized city, and when you live in the subdivision in the city of Newberry, it's a part of a neighborhood. It's a part of a place, and it lends itself to being a place that creates community and creates residential feel. One can reside along like-minded individuals in a downtown where you have things like restaurant, a gun store, an ag store, a Dollar General, pizza places, the kind of places that build the core nucleus of a city. And when you do that, you celebrate together. And that's what I saw last week, plastered all over Facebook, which is great. You got the county manager out there, you got city commissioners and county commissioners, and everyone coming together to celebrate the great things that are here. So it's important when making decisions that you make the right decisions, because just like your logo says, we believe in Newberry, and I believe that everyone should when they're trying to effectuate planning here. So I wanted to have Rory talk for just a few minutes about his history. As most of you probably are familiar or have seen him before, Rory is a professional engineer. He's been so for at least the last 30-something years. He founded our company, and now he's working in the realm of commercial and residential real estate. So Rory, I'll handle the clicker for him.
And when he sits down, we'll still the same height. So just want to give you a little background. So this is a project we wanted to show you. It has a little historical perspective, but it also has a lot of similar characteristics to that of the 272 acres we're talking to you about tonight. We're proposing a project that has residential and non-residential. The non-residential primarily fronting on Newberry Road, sort of an extension of the non-residential use that might happen on Kamoka Ranch, which might become the Ag Tech Park. So when you look at the image that you see on the screen here, you're going to recognize this project called Arbor Greens. So if you're in Jonesville and you're at the Publix, and just east of the Publix is Campus USA Credit Union, then you get an office complex, a new multifamily project, and behind it is residential. Well, the office, the multifamily, and the residential all make up what is known as Arbor Greens. It's a little smaller in size. It's 150 to 200 acres, so slightly less than the 272 we're talking here. The residential preceded the activities along the frontage, the office and the multifamily. As a matter of fact, the residential preceded most everything other than the Publix that was in Jonesville when this started in 2003. Arbor Greens began in 2003 as a planned development, much like we're proposing this planned development zoning tonight or land use tonight. And it is now constructed the multifamily, 83,000 square foot of office, and slightly less than 600 homes. We expect the homes within Arbor Greens to be finished in the next 2 years, If that's true, that makes it a 20-year project in the Jonesville area. We would consider that a success story. This piece of property was purchased, as Jerry said earlier, in 2006. We have been waiting and watching the activities that are going on in Newberry to determine when is the right time to develop. When you think about Newberry Oaks having developed to the west of this project and east of Hitchcock's, and then you think about the Canterbury Farms, the IFAS facility, and what might or could occur on the Kamoka Ranch as corporate park, we think the next line of development would be this 272 acres that fits there. It would be very similar to what happened in Arbor Greens. You had a Publix to the west. You had an Arbor Greens residential development that began to the east of it. As Publix activity grew, shops grew around Publix, the Campus USA Credit Union showed up. Arbor Greens then put in its 83,000 square foot of office, and then the demand for multifamily came, and the multifamily land has filled. Just 20 years ago, the land was simply zoned residential with no activity for commercial. It took an expansion of the activity center, Alachua County's term, in order to make the commercial land or the multifamily land viable. And so we too think that this 272 acres, much like Arbor Greens, over the next 20 years could deliver to your community, the community of Newberry, commercial property along Newberry Road with residential in the rear, expecting that residential would be the lead and would provide the market demand, along with the other growth that may and is expected to occur in Newberry, then the commercial will follow. So as you consider the thoughts for what could happen on this 272 acres, keep in mind Arbor Greens. Thank you.
And so as I was clicking through that and Rory was narrating some of the history that he and I shared on that over the last 20 years, because we did the planned development there. We went back and did land use amendments to actually expand the Jonesville Activity Center to take in some of the commercial in the front of Arbor Greens and contract the activity center really down far south by the tree farm that Mr. Diaz had there by the town of Tioga. It took a long time, but it was a master plan, and that was really important because we felt it was a definitive direction of smart growth to balance commercial in the front, professional offices, and then ultimately bring in higher density product, and it has taken decades to get there. That shows what 20 years of continued adherence to a plan delivers. And it's a very successful community, and I think it has done very, very well for the residents there, as well as from a taxable perspective for Alachua County. So we're going to talk about the why now. Well, as Rory stated, our clients bought this land in 2006, and they've been watching carefully because they've purchased other properties and have completed other projects closer into the city of Gainesville. And we've also done some case studies to look at, what should be the response for this land. This graphic that you're seeing here shows you the very frontage along State Road 26, with State Road 26 running kind of east to west, left to right across there, and you can see the big diagonal open space area where the power lines cut through there. So a couple of ideas were looked at to create a similar sort of response. You can see the roadway that goes up to a roundabout, that little empty circle there, but you see on either side of a main entry coming off of Newberry Road, the left side having an anchor retail type use there, probably about 40,000 square feet with some other supportive businesses, and the right side having both a mixed use component that might have some service, meaning things like doctor, dentist, lawyer, pediatrician, orthodontist, as well as accountant and other type uses, and then additional higher density right there up against the street. So it actually creates a community that has multiple uses within it. Similarly, we believe that those are appropriate scaled. We don't think that it is an appropriate response to think of something like, the Burlington Coat Factory or a super Walmart, but what really would fit up there is something that's more of a village type center, something like you would see at Thornbrook Millhopper, where you might have a smaller grocer, but then you might have supportive uses around it that will serve the existing community residents and the existing residents as they drive back and forth to the city of Gainesville and other places for work, school, and other purposes. kind of in conclusion to the why now here, the United States is experiencing some pretty substantial shifts in residential areas. We're calling some of these the cold weather marketing snowbirds, and the other is the fleeing from large major urbanized areas. COVID had a lot to do with that, but what we also see is people moved here because of the climate. We have great social offerings here and cultural offerings through Santa Fe College, the University of Florida, all the sports and activities that happen here. But there's also a specific economy that draws people here. Now, I've got one person that's come from the north. My mother-in-law retired in Atlanta as a medical administrator and said, I'm coming to Gainesville, kids, because you've got the best hospitals, I can go to museums, and I can live in a nice, quiet environment, and I'm not inside the 285 loop of Atlanta anymore. Then I got a father-in-law who, after 50 years almost of medical practice, said, I'm leaving Fort Lauderdale, but I'm not going back to the snow of Indiana and the Midwest. I want to be in a place where you've got great medical, sports, and things of that nature. And so those are the halfbacks. Now, this map is colored to show you where the change in population is occurring in our state. About 1,000 people a day are moving to Florida. That means every year we get another Orlando that is spread apart throughout our state. And it's really important to realize that change is coming. How we address it shows how well we're doing as cities, municipalities, and planners. Whether we can make sure that this area, and these arrows, I kind of pointed them along the I-75 and I-95 corridors in there, that center of the state is a very popular place to be. And we're a natural magnet for population due to Shands, the Veterans Administration, North Florida, and all those are expanding, as well as all of the other things that make this a great portion of Florida to live in, being that it doesn't have the pressures of the higher intensity Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and South Florida communities that are transitioning away from the way they were when my father-in-law moved there in the 70s. Nextly, in our county, when we're talking about a green belt and creating a place, this is the Alachua County map from the Evaluation and Appraisal Report, which is the part of the county's comprehensive plan routine update. The eastern, northern, and southern portions of Alachua County are blanketed by wetlands, floodplains, strategic ecosystems, and overlays that prohibit development from occurring. And when you look through those maps there and see the environmental related policies that Alachua County has imparted upon the county, it's no surprise that the east side of the county is getting really greened out there. You're not going to be moving to Waldo. You're not going to be moving to Hawthorne. You're not going to be moving to Micanopy or any of those areas in the south. But where the development is going to be focused is along the western portion of Alachua County, between the cities of Alachua and the cities of Newberry. Why? Because you have water, sewer, electric, and you have great governance. You have professional staff that know how to balance land use and zoning and know how to plan really well. The other communities that are out there, and I'm not speaking in a disparaging manner, but they're a little bit behind on their provision of potable water and sanitary sewer. Absent the ability to have utilities in the area, you're not going to have the really strong, robust, resilient, and smart growth that you want to have here. So that arrow and those two that we're seeing here focus on the fact that Newberry is positioned to be that next large city in Alachua County. So it's important to do this right. Your staff report had recommended approval. We recognize, in our continued work with your excellent staff, that there are some times where we need to hit the brakes a little bit, tap the brakes, and talk to you about how this needs to proceed. Because I stated before, we're about doing this right. We're not about doing this right now. So I certainly appreciate your intention. I want to thank Rory for being willing to speak. He has decades of doing this, and I think you all can respect and understand his knowledge. And now we're here to listen to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Real quick for clarification, if I can have the city attorney advise us on, since we did make a request of change of the agenda to item number 3, does that carry to item number 4 for the quasi-judicial for our applicant?
Yeah, we're not even going to talk about that one tonight.
Yeah. I just wanted to get clarification from our city attorney to make sure.
Yep, so it was my understanding that that was taken off.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Dias. Yeah. Dias have any questions for the applicant? No? Ms. Woodcock? No. Ms. Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, I do. One of the things that addressed in this presentation that I would like to discuss is how this development is going to work with the mines. Since that is a large area of concern, and having dealt with and seen the complaints from residents in Newberry Oaks due to the mine by their site, how this will address that.
Did you want to?
Oh, I mean, yeah, if you want to address that.
Did you want to go one-on-one with questions, or did you want to just give a list of questions and?
That's your
Oh.
only question? Okay, I had one other question.
Okay.
So you can address probably both of them at the same time.
Okay.
And I guess I'll go on the record saying, I kind of feel that the more residentials we have, I don't think it's fair to developers to be held hostage by the school board that we have currently. You know, it's not fair to any developer anywhere to be held hostage because of our overpopulated schools. That being said, that's always a big concern of, I believe, our board, our commission, and especially myself. Is there any possibility that developers, you know, talk to school boards, discuss things, hey, what's the story here? Because they hear it all the time from the city, but I think, you know, sometimes if they hear from the developer themselves, like, listen, we have some great plans out here, you know, and one of the things holding us down is, you know, schools. You guys, we have great schools in Newberry. People come out here for this. And I didn't know if that's something that's on your radar, because the proposed plan, I know you didn't really talk about it, but, you know, there's quite a bit of units here. And granted, not every single house will have a student. And those houses that do have a student, not every single student will be going to Newberry. Some go to private school or Catholic school, whatnot. But that's still an issue. And knowing that that is an issue, I just didn't know if that was something on the developer's radar of, you know, hey, we plan on trying to address that issue. I know you don't have a lot of power, but at least bring it up to put us at ease.
Okay, well, let me take the easy one first. Let me take the school board one.
Oh, the mine was the easy one. Oh, all right.
Well, I think in the mines issue and the mines question is a more complicated issue. Everybody across the 67 counties and 410 municipalities in Florida think about school concurrency, and most school boards look at that as a district-wide type issue. If they have capacity in the system, they feel it's okay. Now, when realtors say what school district someone's in, and it's one of the first questions, like, well, where are my kids going to go to school if I buy a house here? That's important too, because if they live here, they want the feeling that, okay, well, my kids are going right here to the school over here, or they're working here at Hidden Oak, and they, you know that is a community type school. So we do talk to them, and in larger scale projects, and when I say larger scale, I mean when we're in the 1,000-acre range, or 800-900 acre range, there are some times where we'll help with their long-term strategies and say, set aside a site or set aside lands for them to use. A prime example of that is the Oakmont development on Parker Road and 24th Avenue. When we did the 556 acres, which is a section of land, less the little subdivision of Biltmore, we effectively proctored about 20 acres to the school board and said, at some time in the future, you may wish to put a school there. Now, at that time, in '05, we didn't realize that they were also going to pick up Diamond Sports Park as part of their long-term strategies, maybe a potential high school in the future. But we gave them dirt, basically, in the plan development to say, if you want to locate a school out here, you can. Now, Oakmont is not done. We're cooking along fairly well on that. I understand their sales are very strong, but the school's done now. And so in '05, 15 years ago, when we said, there's a piece of land, should you want to utilize that for a future school, we didn't know when they would. We estimated that somewhere along the life cycle of Oakmont that they would want to build a school, and in fact, they did. Some may want to wait a little bit, but I think it's a good conversation. We'd love to be invited to those discussions when they talk about concurrency in the bigger picture, but generally, we don't get an invitation to the table. our chance to interact with them is best when they're sitting at a planning and zoning board meeting or at a commission meeting as an ex officio non-voting member to help the discourse and help them balance what's coming along. I think it's really great too that Brian and staff and Wendy and all put together that map that was up here for the urban services line so they can see the growth that is going to come to an area so that they can plan better. But I think that's the best way to address it is, people want their kids to go to a school that's close, that has a high quality and has that feel. So, we stay vocal at the table, and if we were ever invited, I know at least I would go to that. All right, now, the mines. So that is a tougher question. It's a tougher question because it's a question of timing and it's a question of convenience. In a bigger picture of, let's get a little bit mechanical about the land use and sale process. You have to freely disclose to somebody that you're living in an area that may be near active agriculture, active mining, and if a person makes a choice to live there, they can never come back to you all and do what us nerdy planners would call coming to the nuisance. You move there, you know it's there, and so there are consequences to that. But that doesn't mean we want to put people in a situation that's untenable for them, that ends up making the phone at City Hall ring, or making people want to sue later on because they don't like the fact that the glasses walked their way off the china cabinet and fell. So when we started the design of this project, we looked at how it would develop from the south up to the north and what we could do along the perimeter edges of the north and west sides of that are shared and in common with the mining area to create large areas of buffering. We always know too that when we build projects, we're going to dig stormwater basins, and so we're going to end up with a lot of extra dirt. Sometimes favorable dirt, sometimes less favorable dirt that we could use elsewhere. But a component to help with sound, noise, light, and vibration was to further push homes away from that area, as well as to try to make sure that anything that was along the perimeter area might be a little bit, larger in size or buffered, and that we could use those areas along the north and the west side for potentially putting a trail system in there that would be more like some of the trails that have developed around Gatorback, where there were former mines in that area. We also wanted to make sure, and we've contacted and worked with some geologists to see exactly how, violent or thunderous those explosions that they do to free the rock are. So there are things that can also be done in the structures of the homes too, the way the foundations are made, some of the building materials that are more sonically absorbent so that you wouldn't hear that. But it doesn't make a difference if it's 4 o'clock in the morning and something goes off and it boom, 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 goes through the community like that. So there's a issue of transparency and accountability and telling people that they're going to live next to an active agricultural area. There's an issue of site design as a method of creating a better site that will help ameliorate not only the light, noise, sound, and vibration. And then there's the other component in there of how you actually physically build the homes. So it's a 3-part, I think, kind of answer. Since we're just talking about land use, when we would talk about zoning, we would get more to the specifics, but land use in our kind of planner world it's a color on a map. What's this ultimately going to be? When you get to the zoning, that's where you really lock in the specificity of when this property is developed and when that phase gets up there close, it shall do the following things. But yes, we're very conscious of that.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions from the board for the presentation?
It's really not a question. It's just a statement that it continues. It continues to concern me. Not concern me. We have obviously we have kids that are, whether you put a school in your project or somebody else, but we're going to have kids. We're going to have high schoolers, Santa Fe college kids, whatever. What I don't see and I don't hear from any developers, well, there was one, I take that back, but just a possibility of communicating with Santa Fe College or the local high schools or whoever. I know that, Billy Sanderfit Electric does this, for technology programs and for getting the kids trained to have a career. And I don't know how you would even do that. I mean, I don't know if you could just build a building and say, come here and I'll train you. I don't have an idea of how to do it. I'm just saying that it's not something that's discussed at all. When we talk about commercial or zoning or small, what are you all calling it, small businesses, or what was the term? Commercial zone, small scale, right, commercial, yeah. I'm just throwing that question out. Not a question, a thought. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, and I understand what you're talking about. It's that idea of having vocational training and mentorship programs so that you're consistently keeping the community's population, everywhere from the GED to the PhD, having the ability to have a job in the community and live and raise a family in the community. And so if you can pair when you're building by getting the right people to talk to the builder or the electrician or the plumber or, those workers, you can start to build resilience in the community's economy. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, thank you. And I think the school board or the school system, they are not obviously involved in this situation either. But I know a lot of kids from the high school here at Newberry that won't be going to Santa Fe College for a 4-year degree or for whatever, but that could possibly learn a skill and support themselves. And so if we could, at some point in the future, look at something like that.
Well, Mr. Chair, to the point, and we're working on a project up next to our office. Our office, CHW, our headquarters is in Progress Park in Alachua. And right across from Progress Park, you know that Santa Fe High School has the Perry Center for Training and Biotech. And so there are folks that come, I say folks, but let's say tomorrow's youth and tomorrow's professionals, they come right out of like Santa Fe High School and others and go work and learn there so that they can go into those laboratory and research and development and life sciences jobs across the street. I chuckled a little bit when I saw the new logo because it reminds me of the economic development flyer that we helped put together when thinking about the Ag Tech Park. This is right next to the potential Ag Tech Park. And when Mr. New thought of the idea of we need to build off of that aspect of our economy and we need to strengthen the growth and the knowledge of our citizens, and Newberry is agriculture. When he saw Bio Ohio and was so excited about that and called me on the phone years ago, have you seen this Bio Ohio? It all needs to play together so that people know when they raise a family here or when they move here that their kids can get an education, live in the same place, and work there. That's that continuum of long-term, sustainable, smart growth and resilience in the community's economy. It's a good comment. Thank you. I'm going to stare at the guy who keeps Facebook alive and keeps the heartbeat clicking here. Any questions, Mr. Mayor?
I do not, and I think it looks like you guys really have addressed a lot of the concerns, and it looks like you have a really good proposal. So I'm hopeful that we can move our conversations about that overlay district and the urban service area along so that we can have some firm ground to have this conversation.
Well, we appreciate your patience and your willingness to communicate openly with us, because we don't get the chance to talk to you all as much as we get the chance to work with your professional staff, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
I should say happy holidays. We won't be back before
Merry Christmas.
Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that presentation. So we scratched item number 4, being that the presentation is all, there's no voting tonight on that presentation. We're going to go ahead and move to item number 5, future land use. This is a legislative, so I don't have to read the quasi rules. Is that correct, Madam Attorney?
That is correct.
All right. So do we have staff to present?
Yes, we do. So this application, I'm not as tall as Jerry. I'm more like when he's sitting. Okay, so this application is one for changing the future land use map of your comprehensive plan from residential low density to commercial. And in that process, it is where you change your land use map. Remember, that's part of your plan. And it goes before the Planning and Zoning Board for your recommendation to the City Commission, and then we'll go to the City Commission for 2 public hearings, at which the second one, they are able to take action. And then the next step is to go through a rezoning process. In this situation, this is an application by JB Pro, who's representing Drummond and Russell Jr., Helen Jeffcoat, and Michael Willis, who are the owners of the 4 parcels that are the subject of this application. It is a request to go from the existing land use of residential low density, 1 to 4 units per acre, to commercial. The total of the 4 parcels is about 2.34 acres. And the eastern 2 parcels that you'll see on the next map are the ones that are being considered, that there's plans for Eliano's coffee shop to be located there. So also that a separate agreement is being discussed and will be worked out with the property owners to address things like the community visioning for the corridors, the commercial corridors, and the design standards, as well as with water and sewer and the timing and responsibilities for that. This is the location of the property. You can see on the south side of West Newberry Road, just to the west of 240, is it 226? I can never remember. We have, what does that say? 240? 226, okay. 226th Street. The other one is well, the next application has a similar. But in this property, this is going, you can see in the future land use map, it's currently the low density residential, and it would be changed to commercial. You see the other red in the area that shows the other commercial in the vicinity. And the recommendation is for approval, and we go through the justification and looking at the requested land use and how that is consistent or not consistent with the comprehensive plan, and essentially that it's requested in this location. It is consistent with our plans, goals, policies, the objectives of those, and the implementing policies. And with the urban service area, that you want compact development, keeping your commercial and your development in that area. Economic development it supports that, because we want to encourage our small businesses and the mix of small and large businesses to help to have a strong and diverse economy. Private property rights, as you're familiar with, are element with that. The future land use classifications in the area, it's consistent with that and the types of uses there, as well as our community visioning, the commercial corridor design standards that are being developed, and with the previous study. The recommendation is for the Planning and Zoning Board to recommend to the City Commission approval of the application CPA 2126. And that's it. And
Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. All right, and the applicant will make his presentation.
Good evening. Chris Potts, Director of Engineering for JB Pro. I don't have a presentation because I know Wendy does a very good job. So I'm just here to answer any questions the board may have. As she mentioned, we are changing the land use to commercial to support hopefully future commercial developments in the area. So.
All right. Board have. Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's a little different than quasi-judicial.
It is, yeah.
So it's a little weird. Huh?
It's a little less formal. Right?
Yeah.
My only question, you may have addressed this, or Wendy may have addressed this where I stepped out, if so, I apologize. But you know we're doing an overlay standard. You've
Correct.
talked to your client about making sure that those standards may change a little bit as we work through this process.
Yes.
There's been full conversation back. We don't know exactly what those standards are, but you are aware of them and are willing to build to those standards.
Correct,
whatever
yes.
they will
We'll
be.
work with staff once we get past the land use and zoning change to actual design standpoints. So, yes.
All right. Does the board have any questions on the presentation for staff for that applicant. All right. Madam Attorney, we can read the ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is ordinance number 2021-75, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small-scale development amendment procedures established under the provisions of Section 163.3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in future land use classification from residential low density 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre to commercial on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel number 01950-000-000, 01950-001-000, 01951-000-000, and 01951-001-000, consisting of approximately 2.34 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. All right. We'll move into qualified position. All right. At this point, if we don't have any questions, I'll have, if anybody has a motion they want to entertain.
I'm not going to read all those numbers that she just read, all right?
We just, you can say
So
we
I
need to
will,
approve.
I will make a motion that we approve the rezoning, I
Okay.
guess is what we're doing.
Yeah. So it's just a motion to approve.
A motion to approve. And is that including, that's 5 and 6, correct?
No, it's just
Mr.
5.
Just 5.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, this is for the future land use map amendment of your comprehensive plan, and that's what you'd be voting on at this time. The next item is a quasi judicial for the
Yep.
rezoning for the same property.
Okay, all right.
So, and the motion is on the screen that you can always use that if that
All
helps.
right, then I make a motion, we recommend to the City Commission approval of ordinance 2021-75, / application CPA 2126.
All right, I got a motion from Ms. Woodcock. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Uh,
we received a notice, and I thought
Sir.
you were going to be able to comment.
Sir, you will, give me one moment, and once we motion on that, we'll go ahead and we'll ask for a public comment on
Thank
that.
you.
So I have a motion from Ms. Woodcock.
I second that motion.
I have a second from Member Long. Does the dais have any questions on the motion?
No.
No. Does the public have any questions on the motion that's on the floor currently? Do you have any questions on the motion on the floor currently? Or comments? All right, if you could just state your name when you get to the microphone, please. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Father Mike Jones. I'm an Episcopal priest. I live on that little cul-de-sac in the number 5 home. And I guess in essence, I'm certainly aware of the not in my backyard syndrome, which you guys probably deal with every time you meet. The honest question is whether you have a dumpster in your backyard. They smell. Good companies, chains, have dumpsters that smell. And my next door neighbor, his house touches that parcel of land, and my home touches his home. So that is my concern, is that my quality of life. I doubt that my value of my home would go down because people won't know till they move there. But I hope you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Mike. Do we have any other public comment on the motion on the floor?
Basically, I just wanted to know, I'm Chad McCrae, I live right beside him in Cedar Estates, one of the oldest subdivisions in Newberry. I've lived there 20 years. And yeah, I do have concerns about businesses being built right on top of me. I own 2 houses in there, actually. And I really don't want it to happen. I mean, you know, I'm just voicing my opinion here, but I know it's probably gonna happen. The main thing I'm concerned about, like he said, is making my property values go down when I got noisy businesses, you know, right there. It's gonna be right there at the entrance of our subdivision, okay? I know where it's going. I've talked to all 3 of the houses there that have got the orange signs in front of them. And everybody's telling me a different story, so I don't know what to believe. You know, whether it's gonna be there or it's not, or whatever. What is it gonna be, a coffee shop? Another one?
So I'll answer the
Basically?
question. It's, the applicant right now is Eliano's Coffee, which is a drive-through coffee shop. It's not your typical sit-down Starbucks. It's just a drive-through coffee shop.
All right. And another concern of mine too, I know the other coffee shop owners, you know, it's gonna kill them and their local businesses, but anyway, that's, you know, that's neither here nor there, but I just wanted to voice my concern, like he was saying, like having dumpsters right on top of our houses are basically there, you know, within feet of our residences, you know, so anyway, that's all I have to really say.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah, please just come up to the mic and state your name.
My name's Eric Preston. I'm the applicant that JV Pro is representing. Eliana's would be my business that we'd be putting in for people that are not familiar with it. There's one in Alachua. It's a very, very clean building. It's very small, 800 square feet. It's drive-through, so the only parking that it would need would be the employees, so which is minimal. The dumpsters really are not they have a unit around them, usually a block unit, like encasing them almost, so you don't really see them. It's not like a restaurant that has deep fat fryers, and I mean it's coffee. All of the food that's there is already pre-cooked. You're just heating and serving it. Most of the time, cities don't even require us to put a grease trap in. So just it give you a little idea of what an Eliano's looks like. And as far as hurting other coffee shops, it's a totally different concept. There's no seating whatsoever, only drive-through. So
it's a different clientele.
Yeah, very much so. You're not going to have free Wi-Fi and be able to sit there and, you know, converse with your friends and have coffee and stuff. It's just, you know, people on their way to Gainesville to go to work can drive through and get a coffee and, you know, a bagel or whatnot. It's a very different concept. It's very low impact compared to a normal restaurant would be.
We'll definitely have more questions on that coming up in the quasi judicial once we get all sworn in.
Okay.
And I'm sure some of this will come up in that, because next, and I'll explain the rules on the quasi judicial pretty clearly on the next step. But I do appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that neither the P&Z or the commission involve ourselves in free market competition. So
yeah,
whoever wants to come to Newberry and compete, that's not what we decide. And the only thing that's in front of you guys right now is, what do you see in that strip? Do you see that strip as a commercial strip? Do you see that strip as residential? When you get into the zoning and all those other, a wonderful opportunity to say to staff, if you recommend to go forward, we recommend to go forward with buffering. We recommend to go forward with, you know, some site preparation that addresses these residents' concerns. But just to make sure, all we're deciding right now is in that area, what do you see as uses for that land?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have any other public comments on the motion on the floor? All right. Hearing none. This is for the motion. We will be going into quasi judicial to discuss further of what's taking place. For the motion on the floor, I have a motion from Ms. Woodcock, a second from Member Long. I'll take a roll call vote. Member Long? Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimous. All right, with that being said, I am gonna read out the quasi judicial as an entirety. We'll ask anybody that's here for a quasi judicial to please raise their hand at that point to be sworn in, because we are going to do this one time to help expedite. Yes. With that being said, those comments that you brought up, because this is a quasi-judicial, I do encourage the people that did make comments to make comments again, because it is a different hearing at this point, so that will go on the record. I'm not saying that the other ones didn't go, but being quasi-judicial, it's a little different. With that being said, the way a quasi-judicial works is like we are kind of like a judicial, or we are actually a judicial board. So we turn from a dais to a judicial board. We look at facts. We know that emotions play a big toll on things, but we do ask that we stick to facts when it comes to quasi-judicial. We want to see hard numbers. We want to see actual research done. If there's any expert opinion, we will ask for expert opinions. It's just like if you were to go in front of a magistrate in a court. You know, yes, there's always feelings, but we stick to the facts and we vote on the facts as a quasi-judicial board. I just want to make sure that people are understanding of that and don't slam the board because we didn't take account your opinion. We do value your opinion, however, we do need the facts. But before we do that, I want to take, because it can get a little lengthy, I know some members would like to take a quick, what would be 5 minute? A 5-minute break, just a recess, and we'll reconvene and go into the quasi-judicial. So with that being said, we'll take a 5-minute break starting now. Go ahead. Thank you. 30 seconds, are you good? Yeah, no. Yeah, Monty, because, yeah, because Mark Clark's in here. All right, we're live. Got me. All right. I'm calling this meeting back to order from recess. As promised, I'm going to read through the city quasi-judicial proceeding procedures one time. If anybody, so for the ruling, if anybody else new walks into this meeting, then I would have to read it again, but we're going to read it once for the record.
They don't count.
They don't count, they're already here. All right, so the way it works is the city chair shall read into the record the ordinance or resolution by title and number. The city attorney and chair shall explain the rules concerning the testimony. All public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to the experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. The city attorney or chair shall explain the procedure and order of presentations. The applicant, staff, and all participants requesting to speak may collectively be sworn in at the beginning of the hearing by the city attorney or designee. We will disclose any ex parte communications, disclose whether any member physically inspected the property, and then the presentation will follow as ordered. Staff overview, present application, no time limit. Staff report and recommendations with no time limit. Third-party intervener, if we have any, will have no time limit. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The intervener representing 3 or more persons attending the meeting may speak for the group. An affidavit will be required, but they will be limited to 5 minutes. Applicant may cross-examine. The party interveners may cross-examine. Staff may cross-examine. Members of the decision-making body, through the chair, may ask questions of the staff, applicant, party interveners, and the participants. Final argument may be made by applicant, party interveners, and then the staff related solely to the evidence and testimony presented at the hearing and introduced into the record. The city attorney will then advise the decision-making body as to the applicable law and the factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. There will be deliberation of the application. After deliberations, a vote shall be taken to approve with conditions, continue, or deny the applicant. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and swear in all parties for all the quasi-judicials for tonight.
So this is for all the rest of the hearings, all the quasi-judicial hearings.
If you even think that you might have a comment, please stand.
Right.
Let's get it over with.
Right. If everyone could raise their right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give today is the truth and the whole truth? Say yes and state your name.
Yes, Brian Thomas.
Yes, Chris Potts.
Yes, Morgan Smith.
Yes, Dr. Jones.
Yes, Richard Preston. Yes, Ed Preston.
Yes, Chad, right.
Tell your name.
Thank you, staff.
For sure, I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. Just wanted to state that for the record.
All right, we can speed it up even faster. No third-party interveners. All right, with that being said, I won't forget, is there any ex parte communications on, oh, do we have to read the first one? Okay, let's read the first one and then we'll do ex parte communications.
Mr. Chair, this is ordinance number 2021-76, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of approximately 2.34 contiguous acres, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from residential single-family RSF1 and residential single-family RSF2 zoning districts to commercial intensive CI zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel number 01950-000-000, 01950-001-000, 01951-000-000, and 01951-001-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. With that being said, I'll be asking if we had any ex parte communications with the applicant. Member Long? None? Ms. Woodcock? None? I have not. I'll go ahead. Staff, Ms. Wendy, please.
Thank you. This is an application to rezone the property that we just discussed before. It's about 2.34 acres. This is changing the zoning from RSF1 and RSF2, which is residential single family, to the commercial intensive zoning category. You do have the staff report and the presentation that are entered into the record as part of the quasi-judicial proceedings. The request for rezoning is something that will implement your comprehensive plan change that for your future land use of commercial. And this is a request for commercial intensive. This is the same location, the 4 parcels. As we said before, the eastern 2 parcels are the ones that Eliana's is looking at for future development. The application is by JB Pro, agent for Drummond and Russell Jr., Helen Jeffcoat, and Michael Willis, who are the owners of the property. The request is to amend the official zoning atlas, and it's we already went through those kinds of things, but essentially that there is also a separate agreement for the property that will be discussed and worked out with the applicant that will address the community visioning, commercial corridor standards, as well as the water and sewer provision and the timing and responsibilities for that. The request is to change it to commercial intensive zoning. The location, of course, is the same location that we just discussed on the south side of Newberry Road, just to the west of 246 Terrace. The recommended commercial intensive zoning is provided for in your land development regulations, and the types of uses that are allowed have to do with retail commercial outlets, service establishments. It is an intensive zoning category that allows for restaurant type uses, express or parcel delivery office, wholesaling, warehousing. We have certain limitations in addition to this, like with the corridor standards, that would affect those and limit those types of uses. We do have buffering requirements that are a part of our land development regulations that if this zoning is approved, then it has to, the development would have to go through site and development plan approval. And that at that time, that is when the different kinds of design considerations are implemented, and they have to meet those requirements, and that includes landscape buffering along the property, the entire property lines that abut any kind of residential, if there's any home on the site, whether it were to be residential or even agriculture zoning, but in this case it's residential RSF1 and RSF2, which are the minimum 20,000 and 10,000 square foot lot homes. The requested commercial intensive zoning is consistent with your future land use element and with the rest of your comprehensive plans, goals, policies, and objectives. We've noted a few of these in particular on the screen that deal with our private property rights that you're familiar with, that we've been addressing each time. It is in your staff report. So it does support those, and it does support your having a diverse economic base, and also to support the small businesses. It is consistent with community visioning and the city gateways, commercial corridor design standards that we are looking at adopting, and that will rise out of that community visioning process. The recommendation of staff is for approval of the ordinance for the application. And I went through the whole thing, but the applicant is here, but based on that, they're not doing a separate presentation, but I will turn it over to him, but that is the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Wendy. All right, applicant, this is your time to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Wendy. As Wendy mentioned, we do not have a separate presentation, but I would like to just describe, based on the zoning of commercial intensive adjacent to residential, as Wendy mentioned, we will have to have a 10-foot minimum buffer separating on our property, separating our use from the residential use. In addition to the landscaping, based on the code, we'll have to have either a fence or a masonry wall within the buffer to alleviate sound, noise, headlights from the cars, and that sort of thing. The development will be connected to city water and sewer. We have had preliminary discussions with FDOT, and unfortunately, because of our proximity to the intersection there at 246 and Newberry Road, DOT will not allow us to have a connection to Newberry Road. So our main access will be off of 246. Just unfortunately, it's too close in proximity. We even asked for either a right-in, right-out, or a right-out only. And unfortunately, DOT, who has jurisdiction over 26, has denied our request. But we'll work with city staff to mitigate any traffic concerns, as well as noise and sound. The proposed coffee shop is a very small building footprint, which only has a few parking spaces associated to employees. There's no public that come in and sit in the restaurant. It is basically 100% drive-through for the use, and the dumpster will be enclosed for sound as well as smell, and the architectural features of the dumpster enclosure mimic the facility itself. And we are working with staff to meet the design standards that the city has along Newberry Road. So again, I'd like to thank you guys for your time today. I don't think my name for the record is Chris Potts. I'm the Director of Engineering, a licensed professional engineer. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
All right, there's no third-party intervener. This moment, I'll ask if the public has any comment on the presentation, put on the record. Public comments for the record. Those comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And please state your name for the record again.
Again, my name's Father Michael Jones. We're new here. We fell in love with it. What a great town. And I've never seen an area with more beautiful walls. Question is it going to be a beautiful brick wall or a raw CBS wall? That's it.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other public comments for the record? All right, hearing none. The applicant, if you want to cross-examine. All right, staff, any cross-examination from the staff? None. All right. I'll ask now the dais and the board for your questions for the applicant, the staff.
So I have one question. I see without having access to Newberry Road and the coffee shop only having access to 246, with that only being a drive-through, what limitation would that have to the neighborhood behind you, the homes behind you? Because if you have a busy day and you only have access to 246 and the local residents are blocked from getting into their own neighborhood, how do they get accommodated for that limited access to their own place?
Hey, Wendy, I thought I saw a map in the back. Could you put that up on this so we could all look at 246 and where they're coming in at?
And where does that start? Because I want to, go into deeper conversation on that.
So, so yes, there are 4 parcels that we are currently rezoning. The coffee shop will be on the 2 eastern parcels, so the little triangle that's up on along Newberry Road.
So 1951 for the record.
1951 and then 1951-1 are the two parcels that the coffee shop will be constructed on, hopefully. So to answer your question as far as the traffic, when designing a drive-through restaurant, we have to incorporate not only a bypass, but as well as enough stacking for the service to ensure that the use of the development provides the required vehicular stacking to not impact public or private roadways outside of the development. So we'll go through a traffic study. We'll work with with city staff to ensure that the development provides enough stacking around the building to meet that requirement, to not impact not only the residential development to the south, but just the mobility of the roadway itself.
Okay. Now, if with us approving this today, or disapproving it, would FDOT be able to approve another driveway coming from Newberry Road at a later time?
So they most likely will not provide an access within these two parcels, but the two parcels to the west that are included in this rezoning will have the ability of obtaining access to Newberry Road. It's just because the two parcels to the east and their proximity to the 246 driveway connection to State Road 26.
So then you will also have another restriction coming from that intersection if traffic gets backed up. That's a busy location.
Correct.
So that comes with more conflict of congested traffic early in the morning or even in the afternoon. People trying to get over into the establishment. So, I mean, that's just my only concern with this establishment being right here at this location.
Well, we have to go through, so right now those discussions with FDOT were just preliminary. We provided them a concept. Again, we have to go back and obtain a permit from DOT, which will include a more thorough traffic study as well as analysis from DOT. That DOT will want insurances as well that the intersection is not adversely impacted by this development.
I have a question. Are we still in it? No, he's done.
Okay.
He turned off.
Sorry, Miss.
Are you the property owner?
No, ma'am, I am the representative. I'm an engineer.
Okay. So the property, there is, the person who's building the coffee shop is the property owner?
They are looking to purchase the property.
If they can build a coffee shop on it.
That is,
I guess what I'm saying is the owner of the coffee shop going to be the owner of the property?
yes,
Okay,
yes. They're under contract to purchase the property.
okay. And that's, I don't know. Okay, that answers that question.
Okay.
I have some
Yeah.
concerns.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, my concern is the same as theirs, obviously, and traffic. I live just east of the traffic light, about approximately 1 mile, and there are times like tonight, I had to leave my home at 5:30 to get up here, and it takes me, in that mile, it can take me 20 minutes or more. If somebody runs into somebody, then I'm just sort of hanging out there waiting for the police. But I think what Mr. Long was saying is the traffic, and then traffic in that particular area is horrendous. It really, really is. Plus, you leave the light, you're headed to Gainesville, you got to go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. 35, and then at Hitchcock's it's 45, and almost in my driveway it gets to be 50. Traffic tends to be backed up all the way back to Joel's Coffee House in the mornings coming through here. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So I am concerned, like Mr. Long was, that the traffic situation with the neighborhood, because if I lived there and I want to go to wherever I want to go, it doesn't matter. If I need to get out at 7 o'clock in the morning and I have an appointment, or 8 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't stop until 9 o'clock. It doesn't ever stop, but I can't get out. I can't get out of my own neighborhood to get onto the highway. That's a concern. So, I mean, I like the idea of a drive-through coffee shop, but I'm not sure that, you know, that I would like living behind one either.
Right. So again, I mean, as far as the traffic concerns, you know, we're going to be working with city staff, and we have to work with DOT to obtain the necessary permits when we get to the next step of the site plan approval. And during those steps, you know, we'll go through an extensive analysis to make sure that there's no adverse impacts to either the residents behind the coffee shop or the roadway itself. And DOT has a pretty extensive list of requirements that we have to meet and show justification for any development accessing their roadways.
Mr. Chair?
But I'm sorry.
It's
Go
okay.
ahead.
I just wanted to follow up with that for clarification. Does that mean even if you put the entrance on Southwest?
246,
Yeah,
Southeast 246.
that they have to approve that for traffic as well?
That is correct. Because of the proximity.
It's 246, it's the road
Here.
going into the subdivision.
So because of the proximity to FDOT's right-of-way,
Yeah.
FDOT doesn't just put blinders on. They look at, when you're in a certain distance to the right-of-way, you have to submit documentation to them and obtain permits.
I don't trust DOT.
And what is considered the peak for AM and PM on the times you provided?
So that question, I'll have to defer it to the owner of the property, but I'm sure we can have him come up and ask that question.
Excuse me, what was that question? I didn't hear you.
The question I asked is what are the hours for the peak? There's AM peak and PM peak on here.
As far as the traffic statement you're referring to? Oh, okay, sorry. So the AM peak and the PM peak is from, the PM peak is from 5 PM to 7 PM. And the AM peak is from 6 AM to 8 AM. Sorry, I thought you were referring to the peak hours that the restaurant or the coffee shop sees.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you have.
But basically, what we're doing, Mayor Marlowe and Mr. Chair, what we're saying is what we need to do is say, are we going to go with commercial intensive on this piece of property? We have nothing to do with what they do after they get that zoning. We already did that. So what we're doing right now is we're deciding whether or not we want a coffee shop there.
Well, I would say not quite. Yeah. So
Mr. Chair.
we've already decided the future land use, but we haven't assigned a zoning category.
Correct. And what you're doing is approving a zoning category, and the question before you is that district, that category, and the uses allowed in that district, is that appropriate at this location to implement that commercial land use category? So you have to look at all those types of uses and say, is this appropriate? And also keep in mind, traffic-wise, that this 246, you still have Corellis Drive, so there is the ability for some people to go around Corellis Drive and come out the other, further to the east. So, and then we still have to wait and see what FDOT says overall for all of this, and there may be some additional changes.
So my only question is, until we have that information from FDOT, it's hard for us to vote on whether it's a property.
That was going to be my comment because
Yes.
it's
We're still limited to what we
not
We need
quite was
that.
going to be my comment. When we're the quasi judicial that we're in right now, and this happens frequently, is we tend to get ahead of ourselves and we start to lobby criticisms and concerns that are not in front of us. So I was going to ask staff, and then I have a question for the applicant. could you just remind the board what we're deciding right now? And even with a yes vote right now, what are the hurdles that the applicant has to jump through? And at what point in that process would the concerns that we are hearing about come into play? And we say, okay, we do believe that this is a good place for commercial intensive, but because we can't address the traffic or because we can't address the buffering, we're going to say no at that point. Because I think we're heading down a path where we're feeling inclined to say no, and that's not the right, that may not be the appropriate moment that we're in right now. So can you take us through that process?
So the request that's before you now is whether to approve the commercial intensive zoning district, and that means all the uses allowed in that. But then keep in mind that whatever use, let's say somebody came in and like in this case says, okay, I want to do a coffee shop. They go through the next step after they were to get their future land use and zoning changed, then they would go through site and development plan approval. And at that time, everything is looked at in great detail as far as the layout, the traffic, the access, the buffering. We have certain requirements already in our regulations regarding landscaping. And keep in mind that we are also looking at increasing some of those when we amend our landscaping ordinance and look at our land development regulations. But at that, just to keep in mind that this is just the zoning stage. You still have to go through the site and development plan approval process for any development that were to go on that property. And it's at that time, not at this time, that all of those kinds of things are addressed.
So we can say,
I think that's
yes,
what I was
we want
asking,
commercial.
actually.
Right,
so
we want commercial intensive, and then later say, but we don't like that plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
so
you
I
don't-
still
yes.
think.
That addresses my concern right now is
Yeah.
voting on that plan right now.
Right,
So,
which you're not doing, right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we got, like Mayor said, we got caught up in this is what's coming, or this is what they're planning to bring here. However, that's not what we're actually voting on today. We're just, we're changing it to commercial.
It just gives you an idea of
for
what
the
they're talking about that might come.
So to give the board a little, I don't think, Member Long, you were part of the board when this happened, but that property had been for sale recently, or still is, and at one point had a sign saying commercial use. And we actually told the realtor, well, we had the city address the realtor and say that they cannot zone without coming to the board and having it. So if you look at the sign now that's there, it says Coldwell Banker, whoever it is, but it says for sale and it says house. So what we're trying to do is make it zone the commercial. That way they can sell it as commercial. They have an interest in a buyer, and take it from that point. I wasn't giving expert opinion here.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
History lesson. I had a question for the applicant as well, if you could come down, sir. I can absolutely see this as a commercial intensive area. It's right there on Newberry Road. It's right in the core of the town. But I think it's odd to have a commercial intensive, 4 parcels of commercial intensive, and only move forward on one of those at a time. And I think that may be where some of the, so could you tell us what's the idea? It is for all 4 parcels?
Yes. So,
What's the idea here if you only need a very small footprint?
so the 2 eastern parcels are the parcels that he has actually under contract. In discussions with city staff, they advised us that in order for us to get the 2 eastern parcels rezoned, we had to get the 2 western parcels rezoned. So those 2 western parcels are not under contract for them to purchase. For us to get these properties to be rezoned to commercial, basically the city staff said it was all or nothing. So we didn't want to have, and I don't know if this is the proper term because I'm not a planner, but the spot zoning where we have commercial and residential and then another commercial. So they wanted all the frontage to be commercial.
The same. And that's kind of the nature of my question.
Correct.
The goal is to get the 4 parcels all rezoned.
Yes.
He just wants the 2 parcels. He doesn't, you don't have any intention to go after the other 2 parcels at all? I think I must have misunderstood that
No,
part.
sir, not this time, just the 2 to the east.
Could you speak your answer to the microphone, because we do have folks
No,
watching.
sir, just the 2 to the east, but like Chris said, we were required by the city to rezone all 4 properties.
So the 2 properties, we've been in contact with them. They can keep it paying residential taxes, but it will be rezoned commercial intensive.
Correct, I don't even think
on
they're
this
for sale
applicant's
right now.
dime.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And if I can add one thing on the traffic flow, when we say a drive-through coffee shop, this is a double-sided drive-through coffee shop. Both sides are open, so the stacking that Chris was talking about, there's lots of stacking because it's not just like a normal drive-through where you have one window and they're both sides are going, so it does allow for more cars to be on that piece of property without, looping out into the road. Thank you.
All right, staff?
Mr. Chair, just wanted to make a point of clarification.
Yes.
City staff did not require that the application included all four. City staff recommended that because city staff would get behind this application if all four came in, creating a commercial district as opposed to the spot zoning that was alluded to, where it would have been in just if one parcel surrounded by residential. And so the recommendation was to get staff's support on the application, not a requirement.
All right, my question, I guess this would go towards staff. I don't know if something that you would be able to answer. I've been staring at this Google Earth map for quite some time here. Contrary to people, I'm not playing Candy Crush. I'm actually looking at a nice map here of the yeah. With that being said, I'm curious to know, FDOT is not letting you. I have some nice things to say about FDOT, but that's for another day. FDOT is not letting you or giving you access to that road. I share the same feelings as my fellow board members about the traffic to the local residents there. But I did see that so it turns into Dock, I'm gonna butcher the name, Corellis Drive, and then Corellis Drive keeps going, turns into Southeast 246. However, and I'm going to point to this map, I'm shorty by nature. Right here, I noticed on Google Maps, they've made a makeshift driveway. It's like a dirt driveway. Is that something that FDOT will prevent? Is that considered city at that point? Or how much easement does FDOT say, you can't touch that because we still own it? Or does that fall on the city where we can work with the applicant as far as the traffic concern? I know we'll discuss traffic at later dates, but this is something that I'm noticing on this map.
Mr. Chair, regardless of whether there's a dirt driveway or something there right now, because of the nature of the state road and the jurisdiction the state road has, if you're going to have a commercial development or if you're going to have a neighborhood development that's going to exit onto Newberry Road, to a state road, they're going to have jurisdiction over whether or not you get a driveway in that. And so the existence of a dirt driveway isn't really relevant to the issue at this point. The FDOT will determine through the traffic study that they're going to work on what type of access they could have. I mean, if this was, in a perfect world, if this was a master plan for parcels, then you could probably get access further to the west and then come through there. But since the only pieces that they're looking to currently develop are these two to the far east, that's what's going to be the limiting factor as far as FDOT is concerned.
All right, and then so my biggest concern is, listen, I was born and raised in Miami, and I love the fact that the police officers in Miami will actually cite the owners of the building for backing up their traffic. So if your traffic is impeding a state road and there's a line because they want Starbucks, those drivers don't get tickets. The tickets go to the owner of that shop, and it's a $500 fine, non-negotiable. So my biggest concern is opening up this driveway, making sure there's enough room, or put it somewhere where it's going to have enough room. But that's another topic of discussion. But my concern is traffic, like my board member said, of the consistent driving, to the minimum yard requirements. I see setbacks here, permitted to use structures other than the front is 20 feet, the rear is 15 feet. And then I see the location of any structure shall be set back a minimum of 35 feet from wetlands, not less than 10 feet. on 322. So, to bring up the comment of, this is commercial, I understand that the trash is not gonna be your standard, you fried bacon and you have a bunch of nasty lettuce or whatnot just there and grease everywhere. It's gonna be coffee. But to the respects of the owners, is there any way to make that setback push a little further in this here?
In a different quasi judicial, yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, I mean, I see it in here, so I didn't know if that's something that's applicable that we have to make now for the future. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. That is all I had. Oh, sorry, here. We all know the state is coming in with the two-way pairs sometime in the near future. Is that something that will also, I figure this traffic study is occurring soon. How will that work with the two-way pairs? Is that something that you guys are gonna bring into light as well with the city, or is that?
We're beating a dead horse.
It's cold.
So with that, that'll go to DOT.
Okay.
And so DOT will evaluate their future plans with our future plans.
Okay.
And we'll have to collaborate, and then as well as collaborate with the city on all those items.
All right, thank you. All right, you said you didn't have any follow-up questions? Oh, I did? Wow. All right, does the board have any other questions for the applicant or the staff? All right, with that being said, any final arguments from the applicant? Staff, final arguments? No. All right. City attorney, will you advise the decision-making body board of the applicable law and factual findings?
This board must find substantial competent evidence in order to approve this application.
All right, thank you, Madam Attorney. All right. Guys, it's our turn to deliberate. Do we have anything to talk about on this?
I don't think they answered most of the questions with the structure, so pretty clear on what they're doing, what we're voting on tonight, so.
Okay. Ms. Woodcock?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Member Baker? All right. I think we all pretty much addressed what we feel, but that will also come up on a later time. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and I'll take there's a motion. I will go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion?
I second that motion.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Baker and a second from Mr. Long. Is there any comments on the motion from us? No? Any comments from the public on the motion? All right, hearing none. All right, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
I'm voting nay.
Okay, so I'll do a roll call vote. Member Long?
Aye.
Nay.
Yes.
Yeah. Aye. Motion passes 3-1. All right. Sorry, I lost my agenda here. All right, we're moving on to number 7. All right, I guess we got out of quasi judicial here. But we're still in quasi. All right. Madam Attorney, if you don't mind.
This is ordinance number 2021-65, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small-scale development amendment procedures established under the provisions of Section 163.3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in future land use classification from Alachua County rural/agriculture, less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres to City of Newberry commercial on certain lands within the corporate limits Ordinance of City of Newberry, Florida, parcel number 01928-004-000, consisting of approximately 3.0 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. All right. Ms. Wood,
Okay.
go for it.
All right. This is an application to change the future land use map of your comprehensive plan from county rural agriculture to city commercial. And in this case, this is property that was recently annexed into the city. Help fill in some of the enclave issues that we've had. This was back in September. And so the next steps are to change your land use, your future land use map, and then to rezone the property accordingly. So, and this is the first step of that. This is the location of the property on the south side of Newberry Road, just to the west of 226th Street. And the application is by Morgan Lee Smith for RPM Auto to amend the plan. And this is 3 acres in size. And this will bring it into conformance with the city's comprehensive plan. The request is specifically, rather than to change it from an agriculture to an agricultural category, this is for us by the owner to change it to the commercial land use category. Separate agreement will be addressed as well to deal with any kind of design standards that are adopted as a part of the corridor study. And the comprehensive plan amendment is shown on this map here, and the location still, you can see in the outline in blue, and the red in the area is other commercial land use that's in the area. And of course, across the street, you've got the planned development and the corporate park for the Ag Tech Center and the county ag extension. The comprehensive plan amendment, as requested for commercial, is consistent with the comprehensive plan, with your urban service area development, with your economic development element, and the encouragement of mix of large and small businesses, the future land use classifications in the area, as well as with your private property rights element, and all of your, with your goals, objectives, and policies that are in your comprehensive plan. The recommendation of staff is that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend to the City Commission approval of the application CPA 21-25. That concludes staff's report, and the applicant is here.
I was like, what is she reading in? I gotta start functioning. This is cool. All right, do we have any, or does the applicant want to speak? You want to, it's up to you.
Been in business in Newberry, well, I'm Morgan Lee Smith. I've been in business 15 years in Newberry. I'm over on the north side of town and would like to move to the east side of town at some point, possibly on a bigger parcel. And this is the first step.
Will you question the applicant?
We need another 15 minutes out of you. They didn't tell you 15-minute speech when you came up?
I've got a phone.
I was
play a
born.
video. I gotta play a video or something.
Not if you want a cake.
Yes, ma'am.
You have any questions? No? All right. All right, I guess we don't have any questions for you.
Appreciate it.
All right, at this point, I'll entertain a motion.
Let me do this. Okay, where is it? I'm going to make a motion. We recommend to the City Commission approval of Ordinance 202165, application CPA 21-25.
Second.
All right, I got a first and a sec, I got a motion and a second. Motion from Ms. Woodcock, second from Ms. Baker. Do we have any comments on the motion on the floor? Any public comments on the motion on the floor? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimous. All right, we are going into quasi judicial, or we were never out of it, but for the rezoning of previous annexed property. With that being said, Madam Attorney, if you can read into the record, the ordinance.
This is ordinance number 2021-66, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of approximately 3 acres, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Rural/Agriculture A zoning district to City of Newberry Commercial Automotive CA zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel 01928-004-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. All right, is there any ex parte communications, Member Long? Ms. Woodcock?
No.
No.
No. I do, for the record, take my car to RPM, but I don't have any communications other than the managers. All right, with that being said, staff overview, please.
Okay. This is an application to rezone the property that you just heard prior to this about the future land use map change. This is a request for the commercial automotive zoning category. This is the zoning that will implement the commercial land use category. The location of the property, still south side of Newberry Road over to the west of 222nd Street. Application is to go from the county agriculture, which is, part of that whole process of changing the zoning, to a city category. This request for the commercial automotive district on the 3 acres. A separate agreement will still be addressed with the applicant as far as development on the site. The ordinance before you would change from county agriculture zoning category to the City of Newberry Commercial Automotive District. And that particular category allows for types of uses that are for intensive retail sales and services, automotive-oriented things that require visible location that's on a main thoroughfare with a lot of traffic. Typically, it's not a pedestrian-oriented kind of thing, and it does permit the more intense uses. It does allow also the commercial general uses as well that are provided in your land development regulations. So in this case, the commercial automotive district, also the commercial intensive uses. So, when you have the layers of your commercial zoning, you've got commercial general, then commercial intensive, and then your commercial automotive, and each one includes the uses that are in the lower, less intensive districts. So in this case, the retail commercial outlets for sale, in used automobile, motorcycles, trucks, that kind of thing, service establishments for repair and service, public buildings, truck stops, automotive service stations. And keep in mind, of course, again, that any kind of use that you approve here, this is not the use. You're approving the zoning category, so it's the commercial automotive district is what the question is before you. Is that appropriate to implement your commercial land use category at this location? And so remember that a site and development plan approval process is the next step if the land use and zoning are approved. For the specific development, then that would come before the staff and commission to be able to figure out the specifics of the development layout and the type of use. So again, the commercial automotive zoning district is consistent with your comprehensive plan and the different things as far as our urban service area compact development and the economic development to encourage businesses and have a strong, diverse economic base, the private property rights element that we have, as well as our future land use classifications that were in the area that you saw on the map that showed that this is an area that already has that type of use immediately adjacent to the property as well. It will have to comply with the community visioning, commercial corridor design standards as well. The recommendation of staff is that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend to the City Commission approval of application LDR 2134, the LDR standing for Land Development Regulation, meaning that you're amending your zoning atlas to change to commercial automotive, excuse me. So the applicant is here if you have any questions.
Thank you. All right, with that being said, the applicant, do you have a presentation for us? No presentation. All right, there's no third-party intervener? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess we'll ask staff recommendation. Well, you already gave your recommendation, so, or you want to do it officially for the record? report and
The
recommendation.
recommendation of staff is that you recommend to the City Commission approval of the application LDR 2134 for commercial automotive zoning. And you have the staff report and the presentation that's been entered into the record as a part of the quasi judicial proceedings.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the application? Hearing none. All right, at this point, applicant, you may cross-examine. Negative. Staff, negative. All right, board, I'll ask you guys now to ask any questions of the staff applicant as you wish. Will a traffic study be done? All right, with that being said, is there any final arguments from staff or the applicant? None. All right, city attorney, will you advise the decision-making body of the applicable law and factual findings, please?
This board must find competent substantial evidence to approve the application.
Thank you. All right. Any deliberations? If none, I will entertain a motion. Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Girl,
All right, I make a motion to approve, I was trying to say reprove, to approve the recommendation to the City Commission approval of Ordinance 2021-66, application LDR 2134.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, so I have a motion from Ms. Woodcock, a second from Mr. Long. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Public comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimous. Jessica, I'm moving it quick because I want Miss Woodcox to make me a cake one day. Okay, and I want to be on her good side. Number 9, guess this is legislative again. Thank you for coming by. Changing the future land use. Yeah, I'll let staff, or sorry, Madam Attorney.
Thank you. This is ordinance number 2021-73, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small-scale development amendment procedures established under the small-scale amendment provision of Section 163.3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from Alachua County rural agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to City of Newberry agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, parcel number 04370-001-000, consisting of approximately 4.27 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you.
Okay.
Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This, again, is ordinance 2021-73, which will change the future land use map. Property annexed into the City of Newberry. You notice the word recently annexed is not there, and the reason for that is because this grouping, this parcel was actually part of the 2017 conflict resolution grouping that the county had objected to, and therefore the county land use and zoning had never been changed from the county to the City of Newberry. And so I hate to say staff kind of forgot about that. When we realized it, when the applicant came forward to rezone to commercial neighborhood, we realized we never changed future land use on this. So to facilitate the applicant's schedule, we're moving her up as a small scale and moving hers forward as rapidly as we can. You'll be seeing the remaining parcels in that 2017 conflict resolution area brought before you for land use and zoning changes in January. So as you can see, the subject property, it's just under 5 acres. It's almost to 170th Street, so it's on the eastern, towards the eastern boundary of the City of Newberry municipal boundaries. It was said it was annexed in the city in November of 2017. We're now going to change future land use from county to City of Newberry agriculture. And then the City Commission will take 2 hearings by the City Commission to actually adopt the future land use map ordinance, change it to the city. It is small scale, and so it will not have to go to the state for review, and the rezoning will then be contingent upon the future land use change, which will be run concurrently. Again, just another depiction of the parcel. And so staff's recommendation is that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend City Commission approval of ordinance 2021-73 on the application. The applicant is here and would like to give a presentation to the Planning and Zoning Board. And so I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I got ahead of myself. That's for the rezoning, not for the future land use. My
Gotcha.
apology. We have that next.
Okay. So that will go for the quasi judicial, correct?
That'll go with the quasi judicial on the next
All
one.
right, perfect. So what we are voting on here is the change of future land use.
Correct.
Correct. All right. Do we have any questions? No, I was asking questions first. Do we have a motion to?
I move to approve this action.
Oh. Do I have a second?
A second?
I have a motion from Ms. Baker, a second from Ms. Woodcock. Do we have any public comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimous. All right, we will move to quasi judicial for our last item of the night. I just want a cake, that's all I want. Nah, I don't care, she can make whatever cake she wants. Madam Attorney, can you read the ordinance and certify?
Yes. This is ordinance number 2021-74, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of approximately 4.27 acres, more or less, pursuant to an application by the property owner of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agriculture A zoning district to City of Newberry Commercial Neighborhood CN zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel 04370-001-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Staff overview. You say ditto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, as stated, this is ordinance 2021-74, which is to change the official zoning on the property from Alachua County Agriculture to City of Newberry Commercial Neighborhood. Normally, we would go to the same zoning category, or the closest zoning category the City of Newberry has with the county designation, but in this instance, we already have a application in hand to change the zoning to commercial neighborhood. So rather than make the applicant wait for that additional step, we go right to rezoning to the requested zoning category. Again, parcels on the far eastern boundary of the City of Newberry's municipal boundaries. And so the rezoning is the second step in the process. We run it concurrent with land use change. It's contingent upon the land use change, of course. And the commercial neighborhood category, just to give you a better feel for that, is small scale development. It's meant to serve a smaller area, it's not meant for a huge region. It's meant for neighborhood essential style or scaled activities and uses. And it does not require change to commercial of the comprehensive land, future land use map designation. It can be done under agriculture, and it's also the only commercial category we have that allows for development without being connection to municipal water and sewer. So it can be operated on well and septic until such time as that becomes available, if ever, in the future. List of the permitted uses, again, it's fairly small scale retail, service establishments. Each structure is limited to 3,000 square feet, but you can have multiple structures. And based on the information presented by the applicant, the application staff does find the proposed rezoning is consistent with the Newberry Comprehensive Plan and recommends approval of Ordinance 2021-74. And now we'd like to ask the applicant to come up and provide her presentation.
Thank you.
Because it's a really cool development that she has in mind. We're excited about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone, for having me to present my project today. I tell you a little bit about myself. As your first presenter mentioned, there are a lot of people coming to Gainesville. We came from Germany 7 years ago, and we love it. We love Gainesville. And we bought our house about 6 years ago. We are kind of close, 91st. And we just love the location that we are kind of not really in the city and not in a really hectic urban area. And it's pretty relaxed. And so for a long time, I was looking for a property to develop, something like that. And finally, I found this property, which is on the border of Jonesville and Newberry, this property that, you know. So my profession is in design and construction. At the moment, I am teaching at UF, Construction Management School. And I hired a landscape architect for this job to sort of professionally put all of my vision or my idea down. So I started by adoring Jonesville culture, and I found that people have this really amazing kind of like farmhouse situation with animals, and everybody has their own world, sort of, but there is not really something for the public to experience. You know, like if I, as an outsider, want to experience a little bit of Jonesville, there is really nothing for me. So my vision was, why not bringing the community to, you know, kind of like offer them the Jonesville culture, and sort of like just play around and take all the programs that are already there. So this property is in the Greenbelt zone. So without even knowing about your plan, I was really thinking of it as having really low impact, not so many buildings, just like, you know, like only functional buildings, and having this outdoor communal great activity, kind of like a garden. And since we come from Germany, beer gardens are like the social event. So I was inspired by the name Beer Garden, so I turned it into Deer Garden. And so my vision was bringing the whole family, not, you know, just like certain type of people. Bringing the whole family and have plants and vegetable. But then I don't want to compete with the other nurseries around. So my focus is going to be more on horticulture and medicinal plants, edible plants, not so much ornamental. And then I have a whole program, like actually a lot of mini programs that, you know, like one can be activated, and I'll see, because this is my really first time developing something like this. So it may be on a trial error base to see, you know, which one is going to take off more than the other one. So if you can.
You want me to click through?
Yeah. Oh,
You can use
I can
this,
do it?
and you
Okay.
can do it
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
each one as you need to.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that was my first drawing. That's just a vision without any other input. Just to have like zones of activity, grow, move, play, eat, you know, sort of like an outdoor event situation. So the zoning then I was envisioning eat and drink, play, contemplation, grow edibles, being creative, and obviously services. And so what I envision to see when you pass by from the Newberry Road is like something really calm and green, and maybe a few hints. So that's going to be the signage, sort of, like bringing that beer garden atmosphere in, like to invite, like in a calm way that, this is an eventful place. So I'm thinking of, even having like a bamboo wall to have like a sound barrier between the road and all the noise that is produced by commuting vehicles. And then all these different zones would sort of kind of like a puzzle work with each other. So the eat and drink zone, there are some food trucks around. That is an option to bring food trucks in. The atmosphere is already there. It's temporary, they can come and go. And then offer gravel or grass, and a plaza for events, provide movable seating, lighting, space, up to 4 trucks, cafe, tea house, beer garden. So the tea house then, so these medicinal plants can be, like served as tea, not just coffee house, but a tea house. So these are some of the images that you see. So like really low impact building footprints, kind of like a container type, even like food trucks. And then there may be, say, a beer garden situation that I would see renting all these spaces out to other vendors. For example, I'm just throwing names like Swamphead can come and serve its beer, and then somebody else can come and serve their hot dog, whatever. Oh, what happened?
You go back.
Okay. So this central lawn would be a place that is multi-purpose. It can provide a sort of like a seating area for, just imagine a Bo Diddley Plaza situation. There would be a stage with music. It's going to be covered for rain and storm purposes. Not the whole thing is going to be covered, just the stage. And this can offer an area for a market situation that, that cars can even go and drive and put their stands around this area. So it would bring everybody together. So it's flexible, centrally located in the park, and then there's going to be this petting zoo to attract small children. I may think of maybe working with the veterinarians in the area to bring them in, like maybe they bring animals for weekend and, show and, educate children how to, how to treat an animal, or so it would be something for everyone. So yes, play then some of the images that you can see that, for example, like birthday for kids, or yoga on the lawn. So there's so many different programs that can be offered outdoors and indoors. So for the Zen or contemplation program, then the garden would create a trail, and then you would have indoor, outdoor tents that you can offer different kind of programs, classrooms, for families, for housewives, for anyone basically. So there are these quiet spaces in the garden and also in these tents. And then there would be a section on offering plants. So, for example, a nursery can come and they can sell their edible plants or their trees, maybe fruit or vegetable fruit trees. So it would have some indoor component and outdoor component. So the outdoor would be for example, here in the nursery, it would be the tent. I have these tents that come in different sizes. So the smaller ones can be offered as classrooms, the big one, a greenhouse for the nursery. And then there would be these like central buildings that could offer service, restrooms, maybe a little tea shop, maybe an extension to the nursery. Again, classrooms, being creative, personal education, art and music. So basically, the program is really versatile. You can introduce anything and it would work as long as you have the space. Farm activities for children, dance, and obviously service is needed. Then my landscape architect has calculated how much restroom, how many toilets I need, how many parking spots I need. Unfortunately, we have to work with septic tanks and well, because we don't have utility here. And there is going to be, so the whole, I don't know if you see the whole lot, there is a road that is going to the neighbors, and this is going to be on my account to improve it for the sake of the project and for the neighborhood. So the park is going to be much smaller than the actual property. So the building footprint are these tents. So I have 4 sizes of tents that look like that. I'm going to talk to a structural engineer to make sure that they are weatherproof and structurally sound. And these are the type of buildings, like really small footprints of buildings that I will be having in this park. And I think that's the last slide. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, staff report and recommendation. You could just say it right there. I mean,
Mr. Chair, yeah, the staff recommends approval of
thank you.
Ordinance.
Just need it on the record that you guys approve it. That you guys recommend approval. All right, do we have any public comments?
Should I stand up there?
You gotta stand up and talk on the mic. I don't have a mic for you other than
Okay.
that.
My name's Ken Hawes. I guess a neighbor.
Oh, 1 second, sir. You didn't stand up and swear in when.
I
when
didn't
we did
think
that.
I was going to talk.
So.
Yeah, okay,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Ross.
So now
That's
we-
okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. I know it's real late, but I think it's a wonderful idea. I didn't know she was going to do that at all. That's why I came to the meeting. And I support her all the way. I think it works exactly with what you guys are trying to do.
Well, tell
You got
her where
IFAS
your place is.
Well, she know, I just saw her
talked
just
to him.
right after I talked to you. But I think
Okay.
it's a wonderful idea. I admire her for her ambition. I mean, that's more ambition I'd ever have. And be careful with your back. I just had back surgery, and that's what you're going to have to end up with, you know, if you're going to do all that work. But anyway, I hope you all, you know, give her approval.
Thank you. All right, if there's any cross-examination between the public, the applicant and the staff? None, none? All right, the dais, you can ask questions. Do we have any questions for the applicant, staff?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Just in regards to what I see on the presentation about concerts and events not being a distraction for neighbors, being later in the evening and causing an issue in the neighborhood, being so close in proximity. So that would be my only concern with neighbors getting affected by late events later on in the afternoon or in the evening, causing them to have a discomfort. Tonight.
So, do you mind showing the lot, the Google Earth?
She's doing it.
Okay, okay. Yes. Yeah, so.
Somebody turn, is the thing up? Because, see, I'm not controlling that.
So there is a property on one side which belongs to, I think, something like AT&T. So that is not occupied. And then there is another property with a house on it. So we put our stage right across so that we would create the longest distance possible to that house. And and then on the right side, there is enough distance, but I do understand that that may be an issue, which with landscaping and creating buffer zone and the right amount of decibel coming out of the speaker, that can be adjusted. This is my plan to have it not being an issue for the neighbors.
And also, what type of lighting the area will be constructed with?
What type of?
Lighting, like LED lights.
Oh, lighting. So for the beer garden, we were just thinking of, like hanging light, like garden light, nothing fancy.
Okay. Good idea, though, good concept.
Sorry?
It's a good concept.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully it'll be real. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
She's trying.
Oh, okay.
Are we ready?
Oh.
Hold on, the mayor needs to say something.
Well, with that kind of intro, it's been an interesting night because I would remind that we're not at the point where we would think about things like sound ordinances and lights. We are deciding whether we want a commercial neighborhood. And I think that this is a stellar idea, but I also think once the zoning is changed, the zoning is there. So she could get the zoning and then 3 months from now decide doesn't like this idea and sell the property as a commercial park, and you could have a barber shop there, you could have something that is not a green space. So this idea aligns perfectly with that green belt. I love this idea. Only thing I hope and wish is that you want it to give people a taste of Newberry's culture, not Jonesville's culture.
Right.
We want it to be Newberry's culture in Newberry.
Right.
But again, right now, all we're deciding is, do we want commercial neighborhoods outside of our urban services area? And I would say that generally speaking, the philosophy recently has been against that for that very purpose. Once you change the zoning and you allow that to be a commercial neighborhood, then she could build it and it's not developing the profit margin, and she sells out to a gas station. I can't remember all the different things that could be allowed in a commercial park. So I guess my question is really to staff, if we have a concerted effort to protect green space, agricultural entrance, is there a way to tie this through a special exception that she has a commercial neighborhood to do this, but if she sells it to somebody, they do not necessarily have the same zoning package? Because if you and I've made this point to our commission, the Alachua County has developed as far out towards Newberry as this current commission and ideology is going to allow them to go. So at this point, if Newberry blends into Jonesville and we no longer know where we left one and enter the other, it's going to be our fault. We will have allowed that to happen, and we can allow that to happen in a planned way inside the urban services area, or we can allow it to happen sporadically with a whole bunch of commercial neighborhoods, which Pet Paradise is a commercial neighborhood, Coleman Plumbing is a commercial neighborhood, CLF is a commercial neighborhood. We've already got all of these little spot zoning all up and down that is going to make it kind of hard to do that. So, again, love this idea, and this protects that green space, adds to that agricultural. And if you were open today, I'd be headed there after this meeting because we need that beer garden, something fierce.
Yes, we do.
However, Brian, is there a way to tie a zoning package to an idea? Because in the previous quasi-judicials, our applicants have said, I want commercial intensive, and I think I'm going to do something, and we were like, this applicant gave us a long, drawn-out presentation about one specific thing, but remember, all we're doing here tonight is the zoning package. And we don't have any way to ensure that that's what happens once we give that zoning away.
Mr. Weir, the initial thought was we would try to do something so that it wouldn't have to be rezoned, it could be done under agriculture. And the reason that we ended up having to suggest going with commercial neighborhood was because of things like the beer garden and outside products being brought in. You can sell agricultural products that are produced on the same property without having to be in a commercial neighborhood or having a special exception or anything. That was kind of the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you could justify this being an ag, and I see this as being really well trafficked. I think this is going to bring in a lot of people. This is going to bring in a lot of,
Much better than what we have.
So, but I am fundamentally opposed to these neighborhood parks and doing spot zoning up and down, because I think that's what our staff has been educating us against. So I don't want to get seduced by an idea that I really, really like and then make a mistake that 2 years from now it's a little mini mall strip because that's a much higher profit rate, or somebody else, or you decide think life happens,
Why are we going with commercial neighborhood instead of just commercial?
It's the only zoning package available outside the urban service boundary.
Oh, I got you. I'm sorry, I knew that.
It's one of those constant reminder.
Yeah.
If you want to develop, if you're inside the urban services area, then totally different conversation, right? Because we want, and I would love to have a green industry inside the urban service area that's protecting a little bit of that.
A bakery. Are we going to have a bakery? A German bakery?
Well, we'll see.
I need one. I really need one.
It has a potential.
And by special exception, we've just had a conversation about allowing commercial parks by special exception. It would put a little bit of a pause on this, but it would also, I think, potentially give us the tool to say we can give this commercial park by special exception for this idea, but that doesn't you don't sell it unless you're selling to someone who has the same idea.
Mr. Mayor, if we wanted to go that route, I think what we would be doing is amending our special exceptions under agriculture, because if you did it under commercial neighborhood, you'd still be granting commercial neighborhood. So there isn't anything that really fits under the special exceptions allowable right now under ag, but I mean, we could certainly amend that to facilitate something like this, which is a fairly low impact, almost ag use, to open it up just a little bit and allow for things like the beer garden. And like you said, it would take a little bit longer. We'd draft up some language quickly and bring it before the Planning and Zoning Board and then the commission.
Can it be while they work on that aspect, can it be tabled and then just brought back as a new, I don't want to say idea, but a new plan
Well, I should say
without
first,
having to go through the whole process
I'm not a
again.
voting member up here. So if y'all don't share the same concern, then my comments are irrelevant. I would ask, could we, and Brian, this is more of a question for Brian. You know, he says this is a relatively quick thing to do. It's possible to make a motion that you guys move to approve contingent on the ability to do this by special exception.
That's what I'm asking.
That gets her past the P and Z, but it mitigates the motion so that you're clearly advising the commission, we don't want to hand out these commercial neighborhoods because we lose control of it after that. But if you can figure out a way to do it by special exception so that the proposal that she just gave us is what happens, and that's the proposal we're voting on. I mean, she can tweak it, but that's the concept, right? So, Brian, when you say it's quick, is it quick like in a month before she comes before the commission, or quick as in 6 months? Because in planning world, 6 months could be pretty quick too.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah.
I just don't want her to have to go through the whole process all over again because we changed the name of the kid. You know.
We want to set a precedent going forward of what we want the city to be and how we want things to be structured. So when we have the proper language across the board, we don't have to go through this again. So regardless of her coming back again, we want to make sure we do it right and proper so everybody's on the same page.
And just for the record, the majority of commercial parks that are outside our urban service area were approved by the county commission.
Correct.
Not approved by this dais. This dais has always grown from the center out. Those people all annexed in later after they were approved. So we have a fairly good precedent record of saying we like to grow from the inside out. We've made a couple of exceptions around the way, but this, I think, is the opposite problem that we had earlier. We love the idea, but once you get the zoning sticks, and that idea may change and go away. Brian?
I mean, as far as drafting language, we could have that ready for the January Planning and Zoning Board meeting.
And tell me in your mind, what is that draft language? It's changing ag to make special exception possible for this?
There's a section for special exceptions under the agricultural zoning district, and then we would either add a line to that for this specific type of thing, or we would take what's already there and tweak it. Looking through it, we would probably add a line that would then facilitate this type of development under agriculture as a special exception.
Okay.
It would add, though, so once that's complete, assuming it would add, so the first step would be planning and zoning for the new language, recommendation to the commission. The commission has 2 hearings, it's got to be done by ordinance. Then you're in the first meeting in February, and then it would be by special exception, so we'd need to change her application, amend it to a special exception application instead of a rezoning, a quasi.
Right.
Well, it'd still be
Still be
quasi-judicial,
quasi.
but instead of rezoning, it would be for a special exception.
And you would also have to change the zoning, still have to do that. So we'd have to
Well-
change from county agriculture to city agriculture, and the planning and zoning board could recommend to the city commission that rather than approval of
Yeah.
commercial neighborhood, that you recommend that it be approved for city agriculture, then you'd have that step being completed. And that way, as soon as the amendment to the code was completed, the special
Didn't we already
exception
change
could
it to
go.
city agriculture? Didn't we
Well,
do
the
that?
request is to change it from county rural agriculture to city commercial neighborhood right now, instead of just going straight to city agriculture.
We
That was-
changed the land usage, but not the zoning.
Not the zoning.
That's
right.
I'm sorry.
And so-
I haven't eaten much today.
So if we
My
go
brain
down,
is-
if we go down this road, that would definitely be staff's recommendation, is let's go ahead tonight and seek a recommendation to change from county agriculture zoning district to city agricultural zoning district. We'll draft the language up for P and Z. We'll work with her to change the amendment to a special exception amendment so it's ready to go. But it will add a couple of more months to the process. So,
Mr. Chair, why couldn't we look at the language and the item saying one is contingent on the other?
I don't know why we couldn't.
I think that was what I tried to articulate. The motion would be, you would recommend yes, contingent on, is that what you're saying?
No.
No.
I meant we could approve this as the zoning for ag now, and in February, with the special exception language in front of us, rehear this
Oh,
contingent
right.
on the language being changed on the special exception changes.
You want to type that up into a real quick suggested motion, or we can't do that?
I'm not quite sure I understand what the motion would be, or what the suggestion is. So we pursue agricultural zoning right now.
Right now,
City
it-
agricultural zoning, okay.
And it could at least be in the process and working through, since we don't know what that special exception language will look like until next meeting, we would have the chance to review the special exception language, but we could also then review this as a special exception
At the same time?
at the same time.
Okay, so review the language first in the same hearing, do the first review of the special exception application. Okay.
Right, but then at the same time, this would at least be approved for ag while
Right. That would
everything's
go on
going
through.
Right.
What's that? I think that we would have to, I think we'd have to have the language done, the LDR changed prior to the acceptance of the special exception based on that language, is the problem.
I think the simplest thing for us to do tonight is to advise the commission, we love this idea, and we recommend moving forward if we can address these, and let's give our staff some time to figure out these answers, because it sounds like we're gonna be adding a little bit of time to this process.
Yeah, we don't want
Anyway.
to rush the process just to put some work together, just make sure we're good.
But can we,
I mean, I think I understand what you're saying, but I also see that it's making our staff really uncomfortable.
To approve the number 10 tonight.
I'm saying that.
To go from,
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were looking
I
at
was, my suggestion is that the recommended motion is to approve ordinance 2021-74 contingent on staff's ability to allow this activity to happen by special exception in an agriculture area, not by zoning.
but if we approve the action as it is, it's for a commercial neighborhood.
But in the motion, you would say, right, that we're making a contingent on replacing that with the special exception.
Well, no, yeah,
Or
your
do you just
motion.
want to table this?
No, sir. Your motion would be, the appropriate motion would be to approve the rezoning from county agriculture to city of Newberry agriculture tonight.
That's what I
forwarded to
thought
the
you
commission.
were just saying. Yeah.
That's not what you were saying.
Right, but you said we couldn't do the ag tonight.
No, we can't do the act tonight. What I was saying is, then in January, when we have the language prepared to amend the code to allow for this by special exception under the agricultural zoning district, then we wouldn't be able to concurrently on the same hearing hear the change in the language and the special exception application based on that change.
You're talking about a future meeting. Okay, I think I'm with you now.
Yeah.
It's a recommendation. It's a recommendation.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
I don't know who's gonna make that good.
We're still in quasi judicial though, so I
Right.
think there are some steps before we can
We
make
are.
a motion.
We're still into the deliberation.
At this point, I forgot where we were.
We're in deliberation. You're good. Are there any more?
But I do have another question. I'm sorry. I do have another question for you, Brian or Wendy. In doing it this way, now obviously she's a property owner and she's trying to get a business started, and so we're talking money for her. Does this mean that this is going to increase the number of days, months, years for her to get the zoning that she needs? Other than, like, will we be able to finish it in January?
We would at best be able to finish in February. But it does occur to me that the majority of what the applicant is seeking to do is allowable under agricultural as it is right now. And so there is a significant amount of the application or of her plans that she could move forward on.
So she can go ahead. That's good news.
Right, and then the elements we're addressing are what would allow her to do the beer garden and a couple of the other commercial type endeavors, which aren't currently allowed. And so you could do a great deal of what you're planning as far as, unless the success of the business hinges on having the beer garden, because
Well, she
that
needs
is a
to-
bit of an
yeah.
unknown until it's passed.
So I can
That's an
start.
important part of the whole thing, the beer garden. Really, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
that's what'll bring people
But I
in
just
in
meant
the
for the
evenings.
applicant to be able to continue to actually work on the project
Yeah, but
while
she
these
could
other
still
things are
have-
going
Could she
on.
still have food trucks?
Well, Mr. Chair, you know, I, as I'm sitting here, you know, we have an awful lot of people these days who are trying to host a whole lot of things on ag land. We've got concerts, we've got fireworks shows, we've got all kinds of things that are, now all of these so far have been one-off. They want to come and do, and they generally come and ask for a special exception. And I have every confidence that if we give staff, they've listened to this conversation, we give them time, they're going to figure out the best way to go about this. I feel like trying to move forward tonight, we may end up making a mistake. I don't want to open up a can of worms, and every single farmer in town now comes and says, well, hey, you've allowed this, and so now I'm going to open up a microbrewery on my farm and call it a beer garden because you've got a category. I'm not saying that's possible. I'm clearly not thinking all the sharpest tonight, but I do feel like we're trying to negotiate and figure this out on the fly, and I feel like that's always a mistake. I think that you guys have heard the concern. I think we need to give our staff some time to come back and not try to figure out this. And it is going to take us a little bit more time to do this, but that would be my suggestion is not try to force anything tonight. Let's figure out how to do this in the most responsible way that doesn't open up a can of other worms for other issues. That's my hesitation and my concern.
I just don't want this to take a long time for her. She's the property owner trying to develop something, and I think we shouldn't put, trying to work with her for
Absolutely.
the development is the important thing.
Absolutely.
However, so if it's going to take 6 months for us to figure this out, she needs to know that up front. I'm hoping it won't. I'm just saying she needs to know by whatever, February, that we'll have it figured out.
I'm in agreement with Member Woodcox on that, where, you know, we want to be business friendly in Newberry. I understand the mayor's point. We don't want to make a mistake of, you know, we approve this and then tomorrow you turn around, flip it and say, hey, I'm done with this, and now that spot is commercial. They can do whatever they want with it. I love your idea. I think it's beautiful. My wife is gonna love the yoga part. I know that for a fact. She's dying to go to yoga. She hates having to drive to Gainesville. So I'm with Ms. Woodcox on here, where I feel for the property owner, and we need to disclose how we can move this along without jeopardizing the future land use to somebody else. Because I don't want to be a disturbance to the surrounding neighbors that all of a sudden that's commercial, and he's not very happy because he was having beers a year ago and now something else is there. Now he has a Dollar General, exactly, that's mine. But at the same token, is there a way we can make a motion tonight to continue on her process? That way she can continue moving forward.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think after hearing, I'm not the chair, I'm just a board member, but
No, but you're-
after listening to everyone, that perhaps our best option is to table this item until next month. We'll have a chance to review the language and then revise the application to either ag or commercial neighborhood, whichever is most appropriate at that point.
I don't usually ask this, but I'm gonna look at the applicant and say, would giving us this extra time just to get the language right, is that gonna be something that's so pivotal?
No, it's fine.
business?
And I think what Mr. Thomas said makes total sense. I think if
Okay.
we go that way, we're good.
Okay, because here we are talking to staff, I need to know how you're feeling about this as a business owner. I don't wanna deter you from doing business in Newberry, and I just needed to get your input, that if you're okay with what we're suggesting.
No.
All right.
And we also don't want to rush our decision also.
Mhm.
Right.
We approve it and we go through the process, then we're rushed now to help her get started. So we want to make sure we're calm and making the right decision at this time.
But we will hear this in January.
Correct.
Correct.
I have my green light on.
You do.
January. Okay.
I guess
So
staff.
I'm gonna make a motion on, if I can.
We still have a couple other, I think.
No, we don't.
For quasi judicial, yes, we do, sir.
All right, go ahead. We're still deliberating. After deliberation of votes shall be taken to approve, approval condition, continue, or deny application. That's where I was going. Because I figured this was pretty much a done conversation here. So I am actually gonna go ahead and motion, I guess this one would be a continue, we would table the item or continue. Huh? Time served, like this is a jail? Oh, time certain. I heard time served. I'm like, what are we doing, jail? Time certain. Next month to January.
Mr. Chair, if the intent is to modify the agricultural zoning district language under special exceptions to allow for this type of use, then to me, it would only make sense to go ahead and recommend approval with the condition that it's to the agricultural zone, the City of Newberry agricultural zoning district, not commercial neighborhood. And that way, that process, the changeover for the zoning district is already in process. And then January, the language, the amendment language that we'll provide to you will be to amend the zoning, the agricultural zoning district to allow for this type of use under special exception. The rezoning will essentially almost be complete at that point. Then this will change the special exception, which will allow her to amend her application from CN to a special exception under ag. If we don't change,
Madam Attorney,
Yeah.
can I motion as staff's new recommendation? Because I don't think I can repeat
I think the attorney needs to clarify
Yeah.
the motion.
Because this is like going, like you said, it's like just.
And Mr. Chair, I'd also say there's been 2 board members who have expressed a desire to table it so that we can not be figuring these things out. So I understand what staff is saying, trying to move, but I also feel like there's some sincerity behind the desire to say we need to catch a breath here and figure out how we're going to move forward here. So in this instance, I would say maybe if we will have it back in January to have a conversation on it, right, back in front of us, but I think the motion to table is probably still the best idea to do right now.
Well, that's the current motion on the floor.
But you didn't get a second, so it died for lack of a second.
Well,
Now-
I didn't get a chance to ask for a second.
Well, now you just got one.
All right.
So we just, your motion was.
My motion was
just
to-
Go
to-
ahead and go to ag, Newberry.
No, my motion was to continue this conversation,
Table it.
to table it until January.
And that's what she just seconded.
And that's what she just seconded. And since we're in the comment section of our motion, the reason behind my motion is after just asking the applicant if she's okay of doing this till January and getting the head nod and the yes from her, I feel more confident in making that motion. I would be a little discouraged if she said, hey, I can't, I need this. So, is there any other comments on the motion on the floor?
I get staff's recommendation, but we need to take a breath and kind of gather ourselves a little bit. We really want to make sure we have a clear understanding moving forward. Understanding this is great now, but going forward, we may have another conflict and we'll be back at the same conversation. So
And I'm agreeable as long as 2 things, that we hear this in January with whatever we're doing, so we know what we're doing, and 2, that she not have to reapply for anything until we, as a board, decide what we're going to do. For her to have to go back and reapply, that, I don't want to do that. Yeah, okay.
Her application still.
All right, just so, even if we change zones or whatever, we're not going to have to reapply, right? Right?
We'll work.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so the motion on the floor. With that being said, is there any public comments on the motion on the floor? None. Applicant or staff, any comments? No? All right. Since this was a nice little discussion and went completely different than what I expected when I first saw the application, I will go with a roll call vote on this. Mr. Long.
Table this?
Yeah, the motion is to table it to January.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
And aye. Motion passes unanimous. All right, thank you so much. Apologize for the.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We really look forward to seeing you in January and working all this out.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, I could really use a beer garden right now. All right, so there's no agenda items. Topics for member discussion. I'll start with member Long. Any topics?
That's it.
None right now.
All right, Ms. Woodcock.
I want to commend Manager New, Mayor Marlowe, and other city employees who have worked so hard, tirelessly, to get our Christmas lights up, to show off, and to be the best that we can be. And I really want to mention down by Rebecca's studio and Keen's Cabinets. If you've not walked down there, you can't see it. You got to walk the sidewalk, walk the walk. But really, it's been organized well. Main Street has done a good job too. And I, for one, appreciate it. I like, it's looking good. And a lot of comments from the public.
You're good?
Happy holidays.
Oh.
Since it's December already, where did the year go?
All right,
Don't forget to light up Newberry. The Christmas contest is on the city's website. There's business contests, there's residential contests. So sign up for whatever you want. The Christmas parade is December 18th, 5:30, I believe. And then there'll be
I think it starts
maybe lineup is at 5:30 and 6 is it?
no, lineup's at 5. The parade begins at 5:30
Okay,
sharp.
parade's at 5:30, and then right afterwards, Christmas on the Square. We'll announce the winners of the Light Up Newberry contest, and
And we'll have a Santa.
and there'll be Santa Claus there. And thank you for the compliments. I've heard lots of good things. No, Newberry's vision is to be the Christmas capital of Alachua County within the next few years, so we're making that happen.
Madam Attorney, you got any? Nothing. Yeah, staff, no. No, all right, that was my only comment was, remember the Christmas parade on December 18th? I know Kathy's been working hard with her team and, getting the parade and the floats and everything ready and organizing the Christmas on the Square. So it'll be great to have everybody come out. All right. With that being said, meeting's adjourned.